The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy that flows through star systems and civilizations alike. For thousands of years, the Jedi served as guardians of this mystical power, while the Sith sought to dominate it. But what happens when something arrives that the Force cannot touch? What happens when a soldier who has died 1,000 deaths and fought wars that would shatter worlds steps into a galaxy unprepared for his kind of rage? The labor camp on Gorse III existed in Imperial records as Facility 779, a footnote in the vast bureaucracy of oppression that defined the Galactic Empire. 300 prisoners extracted to ban a gas from unstable mining operations, their lives measured in production quotas, and the arbitrary cruelty of their overseers. The camp sat in a depression surrounded by jagged rock formations, isolated from the nearest settlement by 200 kilometers of irradiated wasteland. No one escaped Facility 779. No one tried anymore. The sky above the camp tore open at 400 hours. It wasn't a hyperspace reversion. No ship appeared on the sensor grid. No gravitational wake preceded the event. Reality simply split, a vertical wound in space that screamed with colors that had no name in any language spoken across the galaxy. Electromagnetic pulses radiated outward in concentric waves, frying communication arrays and shorting out the electrified perimeter fence. Emergency lighting flickered and died. In the sudden darkness, 300 prisoners looked up at something impossible. A figure fell from the rift. He hit the ground in the center of the compound with an impact that cratered the permacrete and sent a shockwave rippling outward. Dust billowed into the air. The rift sealed behind him with a sound like a scream cut short, and silence descended over Facility 779, the kind of silence that precedes violence. Daxin Freeborn lay in the crater for exactly 4 seconds. His SUD's immortality protocols were completing their cycle, repairing damage from the dimensional transit that would have atomized any normal human. Bones reformed, organs reconstructed, neural pathways reestablished connections. His eyes opened, glowing faintly with the residual energy of resurrection, and he drew a breath that tasted of ozone and alien atmosphere. He rose to his feet in one fluid motion, 8,000 years of combat experience overriding the disorientation of dimensional displacement. His armor, black as void, scored with the marks of 10,000 battles, shed dust as servos wind to life. The black cauldron maglocked to his thigh hummed with barely contained molecular fury. He scanned his surroundings with eyes that had watched civilizations rise and burn, calculating threat vectors and tactical positions with the automatic precision of an immortal soldier. Prisoners stared at him from their barracks. Guards frozen in their towers gripped blaster rifles with suddenly sweaty hands. Overhead, Gorse III's twin moons cast the compound in harsh silver light that made Daxin's armor seem to drink the illumination rather than reflect it. Where? Daxin's voice was a rumble of gravel and old rage, speaking a language no one present had ever heard. His translation software was cycling through linguistic databases, searching for a match. Where am I? A guard found his courage, or perhaps his training simply overrode his instinct for self-preservation. Freeze, on the ground, hands behind you. Daxin moved. 8,000 years of combat created muscle memory that transcended conscious thought. He crossed 15 meters in less than 2 seconds, a blur of black armor and impossible speed. The guard's blaster fired, a bolt of coherent light that would have punched through standard body armor. It splashed across Daxin's chest plate like water against stone. The guard had time to register surprise before Daxin's fist connected with the tower's support structure. Molecular destabilization propagated through the metal in a cascading wave. The tower didn't collapse, it disintegrated, matter losing its atomic cohesion and becoming a cloud of component particles that drifted away on the night wind. The guard fell screaming. Daxin caught him by the armor webbing, arrested his fall, and set him down with surprising gentleness. "I'm not your enemy unless you make me one," Daxin said. His translator had finally locked onto Galactic Basic, processing the guard's panicked communications. "But I've been fighting too long to die easy. Stand down." The compound exploded into chaos. Klaxons wailed as backup systems came online. Searchlights stabbed through the darkness, converging on the crater where Daxin stood. More guards poured from the command bunker, blaster fire filling the air with burning ozone and the distinctive snap-hiss of Tabana gas bolts. Daxin didn't return fire, not yet. He moved through the fusillade like a ghost, his enhanced reflexes and 8 millennia of combat experience letting him read trajectories before fingers squeezed triggers. Bolts that should have hit center mass found only empty air. Shots that should have taken him in the head passed millimeters from his skull. He wasn't trying to kill them, not yet, but the stormtroopers who arrived via dropship 3 minutes later didn't give him a choice. They came in fast, 12 troops in white armor deploying with professional efficiency from a Sentinel-class landing craft. Their training was evident in their formation, overlapping fields of fire, mutual support, textbook Imperial tactics. Their sergeant barked orders in clipped military cadence, and the stormtroopers advanced with weapons raised. Daxin recognized soldiers when he saw them. He'd fought alongside millions over the millennia, watched them live and die in wars that spanned star systems. These troops moved well, disciplined and coordinated. Under different circumstances, he might have respected them. But they served an empire. He could smell it on them, the casual cruelty, the unquestioning obedience, the certainty that they represented order and civilization while those they oppressed represented chaos. He'd fought empires before. He knew how this ended. "Last warning," Daxin said, his voice carrying across the compound with unnatural clarity. "Walk away. I don't know where I am or how I got here, but I recognize jackboots when I see them. You don't want this fight." The sergeant's response was to order concentrated fire. 20 blaster rifles opened up simultaneously. The barrage would have vaporized an ATST walker. Daxin simply moved. His psychic null field flared to life, an invisible sphere of anti-psionic energy that disrupted electronic targeting systems and caused the stormtroopers' HUD displays to flicker and die. Without their technological assistance, their shots went wide. Daxin crossed the distance between them in 4 ground-eating strides. The black cauldron came off his thigh. The weapon was simple in appearance, a cylinder of black metal covered in Terran script and technical specifications that would mean nothing to anyone in this galaxy. When Daxin activated it, reality itself seemed to flinch. Molecular bonds weakened. Atomic structures lost cohesion. The weapon didn't fire energy or projectiles. It simply made matter stop being matter. He swept it in a horizontal arc. 3 stormtroopers' rifles disintegrated in their hands, the weapons losing molecular integrity and becoming clouds of component atoms. The troops stumbled backward, staring at their empty hands in incomprehension. Daxin reversed his grip and struck the nearest stormtrooper in the chest with the weapon's pommel, not hard enough to kill, but sufficient to crack armor and knock the soldier unconscious. The fight lasted 90 seconds. When it ended, 12 stormtroopers lay scattered across the compound, alive but incapacitated, their armor cracked and weapons destroyed. Daxin stood in the center of them, breathing steadily, the black cauldron still humming in his hand. His psychic null field had disrupted their communications, preventing them from calling for reinforcement. Now he had a decision to make. The prisoners were emerging from their barracks, cautious but curious. A Rhodian male approached first, his large eyes reflecting the moonlight. You destroyed an Imperial patrol. They'll send more. They'll send everyone. Let them, Daxin said. He deactivated the black cauldron and maglocked it back to his thigh. I've fought worse than stormtroopers. I've fought gods. He looked at the Rhodian, really looked at him, and saw the scars of forced labor and systematic brutality. You're slaves. Prisoners, a human woman corrected, stepping forward. She wore the remnants of what might have once been a Rebel Alliance uniform. Political prisoners, enemies of the Empire. Daxin had heard that justification before in a dozen languages across 100 worlds. The details changed. The tyranny remained the same. How long? I've been here 3 years, the woman said. Some have been here longer. We work until we die. That's the Empire's justice. Something ancient and terrible stirred behind Daxin's eyes. The rage that had defined him for 8,000 years. The fury that had watched Terra burn, that had seen civilizations ground to dust beneath the wheels of conquest, rose like a dark tide. He'd come to this place by accident, torn from his own reality by forces he didn't understand. But he knew oppression when he saw it. He knew evil regardless of what face it wore or what flag it flew. Not anymore, Daxin said. He turned to the unconscious stormtroopers and began stripping them of equipment, weapons, armor, communication devices. The prisoners watched in stunned silence as this armored stranger, who had fallen from the sky and single-handedly dismantled an Imperial patrol, began distributing the equipment among them. You can run, Daxin said, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. Or you can fight. I don't know this galaxy. I don't know your wars or your politics, but I know tyranny. I know it in my bones, and I've spent 8,000 years ending it wherever I find it. The rebel woman took a blaster rifle, checked its charge, and looked at Daxin with something like hope kindling in her eyes. Who are you? Daxin Freeborn, the immortal enraged Philip, the last biological apostle of the digital Omni-Messiah, looked out across the compound at the freed slaves and the unconscious soldiers, and the alien sky of a galaxy not his own. He'd died 1,000 times and would die 1,000 more. He'd fought wars that would break the sanity of lesser beings. He'd watched everyone he'd ever loved turn to dust while he marched on, eternal and angry and alone. I'm a soldier, he said simply, and I think I just started another war. In orbit above Gorse III, an automated Imperial monitoring station detected the electromagnetic anomaly and flagged it for investigation. The message traveled through hyperspace relays, bouncing from system to system, until it reached an Imperial Star Destroyer patrolling the outer rim. In the ship's meditation chamber, an Inquisitor felt something impossible, a void in the Force, a hole where life should be but wasn't. The hunt had begun. Far away on Coruscant, in the depths of the Imperial Palace, Emperor Palpatine paused in his meditations. For just a moment he felt nothing, an absence, a blank space in the tapestry of the Force. It was there and gone in an instant, but it was enough. Something had entered his galaxy, something the Force could not touch. And in the ruins of Facility 779, Daxin Freeborn stood among the freed prisoners and wondered how long it would take for this new empire, to send something worth fighting. He didn't have to wait long. The Inquisitors served as the Empire's solution to a persistent problem: Jedi survivors. When Order 66 had failed to eliminate every last Force-sensitive threat to Palpatine's reign, the Emperor had created a cadre of dark side users specifically trained to hunt down those who had escaped the initial purge. They were not Sith. The rule of two permitted no such thing, but they were effective, brutal, remorseless. The fifth brother and the eighth sister received their assignment 6 hours after the incident on Gorse III. They stood in the briefing chamber of the Imperial Star Destroyer Vindication studying the holoprojection of Facility 779. The image showed crater impact, destroyed guard towers, and 12 incapacitated stormtroopers. What it didn't show, what couldn't be captured on any recording, was the sensation both Inquisitors had felt the moment the anomaly occurred. A void, an absence, nothing where the Force should flow. Impossible, the eighth sister hissed, her Mirialan features twisted in confusion and anger. Her double-bladed spinning lightsaber hung at her hip, and her fingers kept drifting toward it unconsciously. Nothing exists outside the Force. All life generates its presence. This is wrong. The fifth brother, a massive Daotin with gray skin and a ridge of bone across his skull, rumbled his agreement. His yellow eyes studied the tactical data with the calculating precision of a predator. The electromagnetic pulse matches no known weapon signature. The molecular disintegration effect on the guard tower suggests technology beyond current Imperial capabilities. And the prisoners report a figure in black armor who moved faster than human physiological limits allow. A Jedi using the Force to mask his presence, the eighth sister suggested, though her tone carried doubt. No Jedi could create a void this complete, the fifth brother countered. And no Jedi would have left Imperial troops alive. Whoever whatever did this is something new. He deactivated the holoprojection and turned toward the exit. Lord Vader wants this anomaly investigated and contained. If it's a weapon, we claim it for the Empire. If it's a threat, we eliminate it. The eighth sister fell into step beside him, her acrobatic grace a sharp contrast to his brute physicality. And if it's something else? The fifth brother's smile was not pleasant. Then we improvise. Daxin had been in worse situations. He'd been stranded behind enemy lines during the Atrakna War, hunted by psychic predators that could rip ships from hyperspace with their minds. He'd fought his way through precursor autonomous war machines that adapted to every tactic and weapon. He'd stood alone against dweller-spawned swarms that blotted out suns. Compared to those nightmares, organizing 300 freed prisoners into something resembling a defensive force should have been simple. Except these people had no concept of modern warfare as he understood it. They understood oppression. They understood survival, but coordinated military resistance, the kind of total warfare doctrine that had been refined over 8,000 years of Terran Confederacy conflict. That was as alien to them as this galaxy was to him. You're telling me you have faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and planetary shields, but no concept of network-centric warfare? Daxin stared at the former rebel officer, Sergeant Kayla Dorn, with something approaching disbelief. No integrated battlefield management, no real-time tactical data sharing. Kayla shifted uncomfortably. The blaster rifle she'd taken from the unconscious stormtroopers hung across her back, and she'd organized a perimeter guard with admirable efficiency given the circumstances. But Daxin's questions were revealing gaps in knowledge she'd never considered. We have communications. We coordinate attacks. The rebellion uses cell structures to maintain operational security. Security through ignorance is just weakness disguised as caution, Daxin interrupted. His tone wasn't cruel, just matter of fact. 8,000 years had given him perspective on military doctrine. You're fighting an empire with logistics and infrastructure spanning a galaxy, and you're doing it with the tactical sophistication of guerrilla insurgents from a pre-information age. It's worked so far, Kayla said defensively. Has it? Daxin looked around the compound at the freed prisoners. Humans, Twi'leks, Rhodians, species he couldn't name. All of them malnourished, traumatized, bearing the scars of systematic brutality. How many more camps like this exist across this empire? How many more planets under occupation? How many decades has this rebellion been fighting, and what have they actually won? Kayla's silence was answer enough. Daxin sighed, the sound carrying 8 millennia of exhaustion. I'm not criticizing your courage. I've seen people fight empires with nothing but rocks and determination. But courage without capability is just slow suicide. He gestured toward the northern horizon, where the first hints of dawn were beginning to pale the sky. They'll send more troops, probably within the next few hours. When they do, we need to be ready. Ready how? A Twi'lek male asked. His Leku bore the ritual scars of his homeworld, and he'd been one of the first to take up a confiscated blaster. We're escaped prisoners, not soldiers. Most of us are miners, technicians, political dissidents. We don't know how to fight. Then you learn fast, Daxin said, because the alternative is going back in chains, or dying. And I don't know about you, but I've died enough times to know I prefer living. The comment drew confused looks. Daxin didn't elaborate. His Sud's immortality, the single universe digital sentient system that backed up his consciousness and reconstructed his body after death, was technology so far beyond this galaxy's understanding that explaining it would waste time they didn't have. Instead, he turned his attention to the practical matters of survival. The compound's layout was defensible if they used it correctly. The crater from his arrival provided a natural fortification point. The destroyed guard towers could be turned into sniper nests. The perimeter fence, even without power, created choke points that could be covered with overlapping fields of fire. The problem was that these people had no experience thinking in terms of tactical geometry, killing zones, or defensive doctrine. So Daxin taught them. He moved through the compound like a whirlwind, his enhanced physiology allowing him to be everywhere at once. Here, showing a group of former miners how to properly brace a blaster rifle for sustained fire. There, explaining to a pair of Rhodians how to use the compound's terrain to create enfilade positions. Everywhere. Breaking down 8,000 years of military knowledge into lessons, simple enough for desperate civilians to absorb in hours. His psychic null field made some of them uncomfortable. They couldn't articulate why. They had no frame of reference for the force or psychic phenomena. But they felt the asterisk absence around him, the way reality seemed slightly asterisk wrong in his presence. Daxin ignored their discomfort. He'd spent millennia being the monster that frightened other monsters. A little unease from freed slaves was meaningless compared to their survival. By the time the twin suns rose over Gorse III, Facility 779 had been transformed from a prison camp into something resembling a fortified position. It wouldn't hold against a serious Imperial assault. Nothing short of a Confederate combat fortress could manage that. But it would make the Empire pay in blood for every meter of ground. Daxin stood atop the command bunker, scanning the horizon with eyes that could resolve details at inhuman distances. His armor sensor suite had finally finished calibrating to this galaxy's electromagnetic spectrum, and what it showed him was concerning. No satellites, no orbital surveillance grid, no network of interconnected sensors creating a real-time tactical picture of the planetary surface. This galaxy's technology was simultaneously advanced and primitive. They had faster-than-light travel, but lacked basic information infrastructure. It was like watching a civilization that had discovered nuclear fusion before inventing the wheel. "They're coming," Kayla said, climbing up beside him. She'd proven herself competent in the hours since the liberation, organized, decisive, willing to take initiative. Daxin had fought alongside worse officers. "I can feel it." Daxin glanced at her. "Feel it how?" Kayla hesitated, then shrugged. "Just a sense, like pressure building before a storm. Some of us can feel things, danger, intent. The Jedi used to say it was the Force guiding us." The Force. Daxin had heard the term repeatedly over the past few hours, always spoken with reverence or fear. Some kind of mystical energy field that supposedly connected all living things. The freed prisoners who claimed sensitivity to it described precognition, telepathy, telekinesis, abilities that looked suspiciously like low-level psychic phenomena. Which meant Daxin's null field would interfere with it, badly. "This force," he said carefully, "the Empire uses it." "The Inquisitors do," Kayla confirmed, her expression darkened. "Dark side users. They hunt Jedi survivors. They can sense Force sensitives across star systems, move objects with their minds, see the future. Fighting them is..." She trailed off, the memory clearly painful. "You've faced them before." "Once." Kayla's hand unconsciously touched a scar along her jawline. "My rebel cell tried to evacuate a group of Force-sensitive children from Kashyyyk. An Inquisitor found us. She killed 6 of us before we could escape. Moved faster than any human should. Threw cargo containers like they were toys. Read our tactics before we could implement them." Daxin processed this information. Psychic combatants with precognition and telekinesis. Dangerous, but not unprecedented. The Atrachna had been worse. They could manipulate probability itself, reach through time to attack you before you were born. He'd learned to fight psychics in wars that would have shattered this galaxy's sanity. And his null field would render their psychic abilities useless at close range. "When they come," Daxin said, "stay away from me. At least 20 meters. My equipment interferes with this force. Anyone near me won't be able to use it." Kayla's eyes widened. "You can asterisk block the force." "I don't know what this force is," Daxin admitted, "but I know psychic phenomena when I see it, and I've been a dead zone for psychics since Terra burned." He checked the Black Cauldron's charge, still at 96%, more than enough for what was coming, and turned back toward the horizon. "How long until they arrive?" "Soon," Kayla said, and this time Daxin believed her. Something in her tone, the certainty born of whatever mystical sense she possessed, told him the storm was about to break. He was right. The 5th brother felt it first, the void closer now, like a wound in reality itself. The Vindication had deployed them via shuttle to minimize Imperial exposure to whatever weapon had created the anomaly. Standard Inquisitorious doctrine: observe, assess, overwhelm. They'd hunted dozens of Jedi this way, and the pattern was always the same. The targets sensed them coming, panicked, made mistakes. Fear made even trained Force users predictable. But as the shuttle descended toward Facility 779, the 5th brother felt no fear from the target. No presence at all, just nothing. An absence that grew stronger as they approached, like staring into a black hole that swallowed light and sound and the Force itself. "Something's wrong," the Eighth Sister hissed. Her leku twitched with agitation and her hand stayed locked on her lightsaber hilt. "The void is asterisk moving. It's not a location, it's a person." The fifth brother extended his senses toward the compound and immediately recoiled. The sensation was like thrusting your hand into ice water. Shocking, painful, asterisk, wrong, asterisk. Everywhere the void moved, the Force fled. It wasn't suppression or masking. It was asterisk annihilation, as if the Force simply ceased to exist in the void's presence. "Land us 2 kilometers out," he ordered the pilot. "We approach on foot." The Eighth Sister shot him a look, afraid. "Cautious," the fifth brother corrected. "Lord Vader taught us to respect the unknown. Whatever created that void isn't a Jedi. It might not even be human. We observe before we engage." They sat down in a rocky outcropping that provided cover and line of sight to the compound. Through macrobinoculars, the fifth brother studied the facility's transformation. Defensive positions, organized patrols, coordinated guard rotations. The escaped prisoners had been turned into something resembling a military force in less than 12 hours. And in the center of it all, standing atop the command bunker like a monument to war itself, stood a figure in black armor. There, the Eighth Sister breathed. "That's the void." The fifth brother focused his macrobinoculars on the figure. Details resolved. Armor covered in battle damage from conflicts the Inquisitor couldn't name. A weapon maglocked to the thigh that resembled no technology in Imperial databases, and eyes that seemed to glow faintly even in the daylight. The figure's posture was relaxed but ready, the stance of someone who'd stood watch on 1,000 battlefields. And around him the Force simply stopped. "We need reinforcements," the Eighth Sister said. For the first time since the fifth brother had known her, he heard uncertainty in her voice. "No," the fifth brother lowered the macrobinoculars, his yellow eyes glittering with dark anticipation. "Lord Vader gave us this assignment because he trusts our capability. We are Inquisitors. We've killed Jedi Masters. We've broken Force users who trained for decades in the Temple. This anomaly is just another target." "It's not using the Force," the Eighth Sister protested. "We can't sense its intentions, can't predict its movements. Everything we've trained for assumes." "Then we adapt," the fifth brother interrupted. His massive hand went to his own lightsaber, a double-bladed weapon he'd taken from a Jedi he'd killed on Lothal. "The void cannot extend forever. We identify its range, engage from distance with blasters, and close only when we have tactical superiority. Standard anti-Force null doctrine." The Eighth Sister looked skeptical but nodded. They'd trained for this scenario, rare but not unprecedented. Some species possessed natural resistance to the Force. Some ancient Sith artifacts created dead zones. The principle remained the same: keep your distance, use superior numbers, wear the target down. They began their approach. Daxin saw them coming from 2 kilometers out. His enhanced vision resolved 2 figures moving through the rocky terrain with practiced stealth, one massive and gray-skinned, the other smaller and more agile. Both carried weapons at their hips that resembled swords but gave off a faint energy signature his armor's sensors couldn't quite classify. "Contact," he called down to Kayla. 2 humanoids approaching from the northeast, moving with military precision, armed with unknown energy weapons. Kayla scrambled up beside him, looked where he was pointing, and went pale. "Inquisitors, it has to be. No one else moves like that." "The psychic hunters you mentioned." Yes, Kayla's voice was tight. If they're here, they know about you, about what you did. They'll try to capture you if they can, kill you if they can't. Daxin felt the familiar cold calm settle over him, the combat focus that had carried him through 8,000 years of war. Death held no terror for an immortal. Pain was temporary. Fear was a luxury he'd abandoned millennia ago. All that remained was the mission. Protect the vulnerable, end the threat, survive to fight tomorrow. Tell everyone to stay inside the compound, Daxin said. These two are mine. You can't fight Inquisitors alone, Kayla protested. There. I fought worse, Daxin interrupted. He dropped from the command bunker roof in a controlled fall that would have shattered a normal human's legs, landed in a three-point crouch that cracked the permacrete and rose in one fluid motion. Tell your people, no matter what happens, no matter what they see, stay in the compound. This is going to get ugly. He walked out to meet the Inquisitors alone. The fifth brother and eighth sister saw him coming and stopped, reassessing. Standard doctrine said to engage from range, use superior numbers, maintain tactical advantage. But the void was approaching them, moving with the confident stride of someone who'd forgotten what it meant to fear death. Brave or stupid, the fifth brother rumbled. Or something else, the eighth sister said. They ignited their lightsabers. The sound was distinctive, the snap hiss of plasma contained in magnetic bottles, the thrum of kyber crystals resonating with dark side energy. Red blades sprang to life, bathing the rocky terrain in crimson light. The Inquisitors fell into combat stances perfected over years of Jedi hunting. Daxin stopped 20 meters away and studied the weapons with professional interest. Plasma blades, magnetically contained, probably capable of cutting through most materials. Elegant, efficient, deadly in skilled hands. He'd seen better. You will surrender, the fifth brother declared, his voice carrying the weight of Imperial authority. You are under arrest for destruction of Imperial property, assault on Imperial personnel, and inciting rebellion. Resist, and we are authorized to use lethal force. Daxin said nothing. His hand drifted toward the black cauldron. The eighth sister felt it first, the wrongness intensifying as the void focused its attention on them. She tried to reach out with the Force to sense the figure's intentions, to predict his next move. The Force answered with asterisk nothing. It was like trying to grab smoke, trying to see in absolute darkness. Terror crawled up her spine, the primal fear of facing something that shouldn't exist. Last warning, the fifth brother said, though his confidence was fracturing. Surrender or... Daxin moved. 8,000 years of combat experience compressed into explosive action. He crossed 20 meters in under 2 seconds, faster than human physiology should allow, faster than the Inquisitors' force-enhanced reflexes could compensate for without their precognition. The fifth brother swung his lightsaber in a desperate horizontal slash that should have bisected Daxin at the waist. The black cauldron met the plasma blade. Molecular destabilization cascaded along the lightsaber's length. The weapon's magnetic containment failed as its component atoms lost cohesion. The plasma blade sputtered and died. The hilt disintegrated in the fifth brother's hand, becoming a cloud of metallic dust that scattered on the wind. The Inquisitor stared at his empty hand in shock. Daxin's left fist took him in the solar plexus, not hard enough to kill, but sufficient to crack ribs and drive the air from his lungs. The fifth brother folded, crashed to his knees, and looked up at the armored figure with dawning horror. The eighth sister screamed and attacked. She was fast, acrobatic, trained in the aggressive forms favored by the Inquisitors. Her double-bladed lightsaber spun in complex patterns designed to overwhelm defenses and create openings. Against a Jedi, it would have been devastating. Against Daxin Freeborn, it was inadequate. He didn't block or parry. He simply wasn't there when the blades arrived. 8,000 years of fighting psychics, precognitives, and reality warpers had taught him how to move in ways that defied prediction. Not faster, asterisk differently. His combat patterns lacked the tells that subconscious force sensitivity would normally detect. He fought like a void-given form, and the Eighth Sister's training failed her completely. The Black Cauldron struck her weapon mid-spin. Both blades disintegrated simultaneously. The Eighth Sister stumbled, thrown off balance by the sudden loss of her weapon's mass, and Daxin was there. His hand closed around her throat, not squeezing, not yet, just asterisk holding asterisk. She clawed at his armored wrist with desperate strength, tried to choke him with telekinesis, tried to blind him with force lightning. Nothing happened. The force couldn't touch him. Her powers, honed over years of dark side training, simply failed in his presence. For the first time since joining the Inquisitors, the Eighth Sister felt utterly, completely helpless. "I'm going to let you live," Daxin said, his voice calm and cold. "Both of you, because I want you to deliver a message to whoever sent you." He released her. She collapsed, gasping, one hand clutching her bruised throat. The fifth brother had recovered enough to rise to his knees. His ribs were broken, his weapon destroyed, and his force abilities useless in the Void's presence. But Inquisitors were trained to persevere, to endure. What message? Daxin looked down at both of them, these hunters, these predators who terrorized a galaxy, and felt the old rage stirring. How many people had they killed? How many force-sensitive children had they murdered? How many times had they enforced tyranny in the name of order? "Tell your empire," Daxin said, "that I've fought gods and killed them. I've watched civilizations burn and stood in the ashes. I've died 1,000 times and come back angrier every time." He leaned closer, and his eyes glowed with something that was not quite human. "I don't care about your politics. I don't care about your wars. But I recognize evil when I see it, and I've spent 8,000 years ending it." He straightened, turned his back on them, a calculated insult, and began walking toward the compound. "If your empire wants me," he called over his shoulder, "tell them to send someone interesting." These two weren't even a warm-up. The fifth brother and eighth sister watched him go, two apex predators confronted with something higher on the food chain. They didn't speak. They simply retreated to their shuttle, carrying their broken weapons and shattered confidence. By the time they reached orbit, their report was already transmitting through hyperspace relays toward Coruscant. In the Imperial Palace, Darth Vader received the message and felt something he hadn't experienced in years: genuine interest. And in Facility 779, Daxin Freeborn stood among the freed prisoners and wondered how long before this galaxy's evil sent something worth his full attention. He had a feeling he wouldn't wait long. The hologram flickered to life in the meditation chamber of the Asterisk Executor Asterisk, Darth Vader's personal superstar destroyer. The fifth brother and eighth sister knelt in transmitted blue light, their images distorted by hyperspace interference, but their humiliation crystal clear. Behind his mask, Vader studied them with the cold assessment of a predator evaluating wounded prey. "Explain," Vader said. The single word carried the weight of absolute authority and barely restrained violence. The fifth brother spoke first, his massive frame somehow diminished even through holographic projection. "My lord, the target is unlike any force null we have encountered. Our lightsabers were destroyed by molecular destabilization. Our force abilities ceased to function within approximately 20 meters of his position. His speed and strength exceed human physiological limits without any detectable force enhancement." "You engaged a single target," Vader said, each word measured and cold. "2 Inquisitors, trained hunters, and you retreated." The Eighth Sister flinched but held her position. Lord Vader, he was wrong, not just force null, something that erases the force wherever it exists. Fighting him was like fighting in absolute darkness while he could see perfectly. Our training, our abilities, everything we've honed became useless. Vader was silent for a long moment. Through the Force, he could sense their terror, their confusion, their certainty that they were about to die for their failure. He could kill them with a thought, collapse their windpipes through the holoprojector, or simply dispatch assassins to their current location. The Empire had no shortage of dark side users eager to join the Inquisitors. But the Fifth Brother and Eighth Sister were not lying. Vader could sense that much through their fear. They had encountered something genuinely anomalous, something that defied the natural order of the galaxy, and more importantly, something that could nullify the Force. That made it either an invaluable weapon or an existential threat. "You will return to Coruscant for debriefing," Vader commanded. "Transmit all censored data from your encounter. Lord Sidious will want to examine this anomaly personally." The Inquisitors bowed, relief and residual terror mixing in equal measure. The hologram terminated. Vader turned toward the viewport, watching the star lines of hyperspace streak past. His mechanical breathing filled the silence of the meditation chamber, a constant reminder of his own transformation, his own death and resurrection into something more and less than human. A being that could nullify the Force, that destroyed lightsabers with molecular weapons, that moved with impossible speed without force enhancement, that spoke of fighting gods and dying 1,000 times. Intriguing. Vader had not felt genuine curiosity in years. The daily brutality of Imperial enforcement had become routine, crushing rebellions, hunting Jedi survivors, and forcing Palpatine's will across 1,000 systems. Even the most powerful Force users he'd killed had been predictable, their abilities fitting within understood parameters. But this was something new. "Admiral Piet," Vader said, activating his comlink. The Admiral's response was immediate, his voice tight with the perpetual anxiety of serving under Vader's command. "Yes, Lord Vader." "Set course for Gorse III, maximum speed." "At once, my lord, may I ask?" "No," Vader terminated the connection. He returned his attention to the viewport, his mind already calculating possibilities. If this being truly nullified the Force, then Palpatine would want it captured, studied, potentially weaponized. The Emperor's paranoia about Force-sensitive threats was well known. He'd exterminated the Jedi specifically because they represented a check on his absolute power. A Force null of this magnitude would be worth more than entire star systems to Palpatine. But there was another consideration, one Vader kept buried deep where even Palpatine's probing couldn't easily reach it. A being immune to the Force was also immune to Palpatine's most powerful weapon, his ability to dominate and destroy through the dark side. If this anomaly could be turned, controlled, aimed at the right target. Vader crushed the thought before it could fully form. Palpatine had eyes everywhere, spies in places even Vader didn't fully understand. Treasonous thoughts were dangerous luxuries. He would investigate this anomaly, assess the threat, and report to his master. What happened after that would depend on what he found. News of the incident spread through underground channels faster than Imperial intelligence could suppress it. The Rebel Alliance operated on a cell structure, specifically designed to survive Imperial infiltration. Small, independent groups with minimal knowledge of each other, connected through carefully controlled communication networks. When word reached the Rebel cruiser Redemption *, General Jan Dodona called an emergency command meeting. The briefing room was sparse, utilitarian. The rebellion had no resources to waste on aesthetics. A dozen officers crowded around the holodeck, studying the grainy footage that Alliance intelligence had obtained from Gorse III. The image quality was poor, corrupted by electromagnetic interference, but the key details were visible. A figure in black armor, Imperial stormtroopers scattered like toys, 2 Inquisitors retreating in defeat. Confirmed reports indicate a single combatant neutralized an entire Imperial garrison, freed approximately 300 prisoners, and defeated 2 Inquisitors in direct combat, Dodona said, his weathered face grave. Our source, a former political prisoner named Kayla Dorn, claims the combatant possesses technology beyond current Imperial capabilities and demonstrates abilities that nullify Force powers. Mon Mothma, the Alliance's civilian leader, leaned forward. Her expression was carefully controlled, but those who knew her well could read the concern in her eyes. A Force null. I've heard rumors of such things in ancient Jedi texts, but nothing credible. Certainly nothing that could defeat trained Inquisitors. This is no rumor, Captain Rex interjected. The clone veteran had seen more combat than most of the officers combined, and his tactical assessment carried weight. I've reviewed the footage frame by frame. The target's movement patterns are military, professional, efficient, lethal, but controlled. Whoever he is, he's had extensive combat training. And his equipment, Rex shook his head. I've never seen molecular destabilization weapons. The Empire's been trying to develop that technology for years. Could he be an Imperial asset? Commander Sato asked. Some kind of secret weapon program. If he were Imperial, the Inquisitors wouldn't have engaged him, Dodona countered. And our source indicates he specifically freed the prisoners and spoke against the Empire's tyranny. His actions suggest ideological opposition to Imperial rule. Princess Leia Organa, the youngest person in the room, but already one of the Alliance's most effective agents, studied the frozen holographic image with sharp intelligence. We need to make contact. If even half of what we're hearing is true, this individual represents a significant tactical asset. Someone who can nullify the Force could counter Vader himself. The room fell silent at that. Darth Vader was the rebellion's nightmare, an unstoppable enforcer who could sense rebel operatives through the Force, crush starfighters with telekinesis, and slaughter entire squads without breaking stride. The Alliance had lost dozens of operations specifically because Vader had sensed their presence. A weapon that could neutralize Vader would change everything. We don't recruit weapons, Mon Mothma said quietly. We build alliances with those who share our values. If we approach this individual as a potential tool, we're no better than the Empire. With respect, ma'am, Rex said. Sometimes you need weapons to win wars. The Empire won't hesitate to deploy every asset they have. Neither should we. Mon Mothma and Rex locked eyes. Civilian idealism versus military pragmatism. A tension that had defined the Alliance since its inception. Before either could respond, the holotable's communication array activated. Incoming hyperspace reversion, the communications officer reported. Imperial signature, Superstar Destroyer class. The briefing room erupted into controlled chaos. A superstar destroyer meant Vader. Vader meant they had minutes, perhaps seconds, before Imperial starfighters swarmed their position. Evacuation protocol, Dodona commanded. All ships scatter on predetermined vectors. Mon Mothma Princess Leia to the escape shuttles immediately. But Leia was still staring at the frozen hologram of the armored figure. We can't abandon this lead. If Vader's going to Gorse III personally, then the Empire sees this individual as a major threat, which means we need him as an ally. Your Highness, we don't have time, Sato began. Then make time, Leia interrupted. She turned to Dodona. General, I'm requesting permission to deploy to Gorse III. Small team, fast insertion, make contact before the Empire captures or kills him. Absolutely not, Mon Mothma said. You're too valuable to risk on a reconnaissance mission. I'm valuable because I take risks, Leia countered. Because I go where others won't. If this individual is as powerful as the reports indicate, then first contact will define whether he becomes our ally or our enemy. Would you rather that contact be made by a junior agent or by someone who can speak with the Alliance's full authority? Dodona looked between Leia and Mon Mothma, weighing strategic necessity against political reality. Finally, he nodded. Take Captain Rex and a small team. Fast insertion, faster extraction. Make contact, assess the situation, and get out before Vader arrives. If the Empire captures him, this opportunity is lost. Leia was already moving toward the exit. Rex, assemble your team. We leave in 5 minutes. Mon Mothma caught her arm as she passed. Leia, please, be careful. We've already lost too many good people to Vader. Leia squeezed her hand. I know, but sometimes you have to take the risk. May the Force be with us. Something tells me, Rex muttered as they hurried toward the hangar, that where we're going, the Force isn't invited. Daxin stood on the command bunker roof, watching the twin suns set over Gorse III's toxic wasteland. The freed prisoners had spent the day fortifying their position, amateur work by Confederate standards, but adequate given their limited resources and training. They'd organized into watches, established supply ratios, and even begun discussing long-term survival strategies. They were starting to think like soldiers rather than victims. That was progress. Kayla climbed up beside him, moving with the cautious respect people developed around Daxin after spending time in his null field. Most Force sensitives found his presence deeply uncomfortable, like standing next to a black hole that swallowed something essential to their being. They'll send more, she said, not a question, a certainty. Yes, Daxin's enhanced vision had detected the energy spike in orbit 3 hours ago, a massive capital ship reverting from hyperspace. His armor's sensors couldn't analyze the signature in detail, but the power readings suggested something the size of a city. Something big just arrived. Military vessel, heavy tonnage. Probably their response to the Inquisitors' failure. Kayla paled. A star destroyer? No, bigger, it has to be. She closed her eyes, reaching out with whatever mystical sense she possessed, and gasped. Vader, I can feel him. Like ice and rage and darkness all compressed into one presence. He's coming here. This Vader, Daxin said. Tell me about him. Kayla took a shaky breath. He's the Emperor's enforcer, a Sith Lord. The rumors say he was once a Jedi Knight who fell to the dark side. He killed most of the surviving Jedi after Order 66. He can sense Force sensitives across star systems, crush throats with a gesture, see the future. He's death in black armor. Daxin processed this. A psychic warrior of significant power, cybernetically enhanced, serving as the Empire's primary military enforcer. Dangerous, certainly, but Daxin had fought worse. The Atrechna could manipulate probability and reach through time. The Lannic Talon had fielded entire armies of cybernetic super-soldiers. Compared to enemies that could rip ships from hyperspace with their minds, one psychic enforcer seemed manageable. "How long until he arrives?" Daxin asked. "He's already in orbit," Kayla whispered. "He'll deploy ground forces within hours. When he does..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Daxin looked down at the compound, at the freed prisoners who'd started calling themselves the Free Company, a name that resonated with military traditions from a dozen civilizations. They were organizing dinner, sharing rations, telling stories in the gathering darkness. For the first time in years, perhaps their entire lives, they were free. And an empire was coming to take that freedom away. "Evacuate," Daxin said. Kayla stared at him. "What?" "Evacuate. Get everyone off-world. This Vader is coming for me, not you. There's no reason for anyone else to die here." "We don't have transport," Kayla protested. "The facility's shuttles were destroyed when you disabled the power grid. The nearest settlement is 200 kilometers through irradiated wasteland. We can't." "Then you steal transport," Daxin interrupted. "You raid the incoming Imperial forces, take their shuttles and run. You're free now. Act like it." "And what will you do?" Daxin turned to face her fully, and Kayla saw something ancient and terrible in his eyes. The weight of 8,000 years, of wars that had consumed civilizations, of death and resurrection repeated until mortality became meaningless. "I'm going to meet this Vader," Daxin said simply, "and we're going to have a conversation about tyranny." Before Kayla could respond, Daxin's armor sensors screamed a warning. Multiple contacts, fast-moving, approaching from the north. His enhanced vision resolved the details. A small craft, modified for speed, carrying maybe 6 occupants. Not Imperial. The sensor signature was wrong, the approach vector too cautious. "New arrivals," he said. "Not Empire, coming in fast and low, trying to avoid orbital detection." "Rebels?" Kayla's expression shifted from despair to desperate hope. "They must have heard what happened. They're coming to help." "Or recruit," Daxin said cynically. He'd seen resistance movements before. Most were genuine freedom fighters. Some were just different brands of tyranny waiting for their turn at power. Either way, they're about to walk into a war zone. The craft, a modified light freighter that looked like it had been held together with prayers and desperation, set down just outside the compound's perimeter. The loading ramp descended, and 6 figures emerged. 5 carried weapons with professional competence. The 6th, a young human woman in white robes, carried herself with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Daxin recognized command presence when he saw it. Whatever this woman was, she was someone important. The group approached the compound's main entrance, where Kayla had stationed guards. There was a brief exchange, then Kayla herself hurried to meet them. After a moment, she looked up at Daxin and gestured urgently. "They want to talk to you," she called. "They're from the Rebel Alliance. The woman is Princess Leia Organa." Daxin descended from the command bunker, his boots hitting the permacrete with thuds that resonated like distant thunder. The 5 armed escorts, professional soldiers, he noted with approval, immediately went tense, hands drifting toward weapons. But the princess simply watched him approach with steady eyes and no visible fear. Brave or foolish, Daxin hadn't decided which. "You're the one who destroyed 2 Inquisitors," Leia said. Not a question. A statement of fact delivered with absolute confidence. "I defended myself," Daxin corrected. "They're still alive, probably regretting their career choices, but alive." One of the armed escorts, an older human male with distinctive clone trooper features, whistled appreciatively. "You took on 2 Inquisitors alone and let them live. That's either supreme confidence or supreme stupidity." "Captain Rex," Leia chided, though her tone carried amusement. She turned her attention back to Daxin. "My name is Leia Organa. I represent the Alliance to restore the Republic." "The rebellion," Daxin interrupted. "I know. Kayla mentioned you. Guerrilla fighters trying to overthrow this empire through insurgency and terrorism." Leia's expression hardened slightly. "Freedom fighters trying to restore democracy through necessary resistance. There's a difference." "Is there?" Daxin gestured toward the compound, where freed prisoners were going about their evening routines. "I've seen a lot of wars, Princess. A lot of freedom fighters who became the next generation of tyrants the moment they won. Words are cheap. Actions matter." "Then judge us by our actions," Leia said. "We fight an empire that enslaves entire species, destroys planets, and hunts children for the crime of being Force-sensitive. We don't have the luxury of moral perfection, but we do our best to." She stopped mid-sentence, her expression shifting to confusion and alarm. Her hand went to her chest, as if checking for something missing. Behind her, Rex was frowning, looking around with the wariness of a soldier who just lost his tactical awareness. "What the hell?" Rex muttered. "I can't. It's like trying to see in fog, everything's muted." Leia's eyes widened as understanding dawned. She looked at Daxin with new comprehension and new wariness. You're doing something to the Force. I can barely sense it anymore. It's like standing in a void." "My equipment interferes with psychic phenomena," Daxin explained. "I'm told your Force is some kind of mystical energy field. My null field disrupts it. Stay more than 20 meters away and you should be fine." "A psychic null," Rex said, and now his expression held respect mixed with tactical calculation. "The Kaminoans tried to engineer that into some of the clone batches. Never worked. The specimens either went insane or died. But you're stable, functional, and powerful enough to shut down Inquisitors." "I've had a lot of practice," Daxin said dryly. He studied the group with 8,000 years of experience reading military formations. Professional, disciplined, genuinely concerned about the freed prisoners rather than just focused on him. Better than he'd expected. "Why are you here, Princess? Did you come to recruit me for your war?" "I came to offer you an alliance," Leia corrected. "You've demonstrated you're no friend of the Empire. You freed prisoners at great personal risk. You showed mercy to enemies who would have killed you without hesitation. Those are the actions of someone who values freedom and justice." "I value stopping tyranny," Daxin said. "I've been fighting empires for 8,000 years. I know what they look like regardless of what name they use or what flag they fly. Your empire has all the markers: totalitarian control, systematic oppression, enforced through military violence. I'll fight it because that's what I do. But I don't join armies anymore. I stopped believing in grand causes around the time my homeworld burned." Leia took a step closer, close enough that Daxin's null field would be affecting her significantly, and met his eyes without flinching. "Then don't believe in causes. Believe in people. Believe in the 300 prisoners you freed who can now live without fear. Believe in the billions more across this galaxy who deserve the same chance." "Pretty words," Daxin said, but there was something in the princess's eyes, a genuine conviction, a willingness to sacrifice, that resonated with something he'd thought long dead. How many commanders had he served under across the millennia? How many had been genuine believers versus cynical opportunists? This princess, she believed, really believed. That made her either dangerously naive or genuinely heroic. Daxin hadn't decided which. "I'm not here to recruit you for propaganda," Leia continued. "I'm here because in approximately 2 hours, Darth Vader is going to land on this planet with enough troops to turn this compound into a crater. You can face him alone, and maybe you'd win. I don't know your capabilities. Or you can accept help from people who have been fighting this empire for years. And in exchange, you consider helping us fight battles we can't win alone, not as a soldier following orders, as an ally making his own choices." Leia glanced back at the compound, where the freed prisoners were watching the exchange with cautious hope. "These people look up to you. In one day, you gave them something the Empire spent years taking away, the belief that tyranny can be fought and beaten. That's worth more than 100 military victories." Daxin was silent for a long moment. He looked at the princess, at her professional escorts, at the freed prisoners, at the gathering darkness as Gorse III's twin suns finally set completely. Somewhere in orbit, a massive warship was preparing to deploy an enforcer who could crush throats with his mind and sense enemies through mystical energy. And here he was, an immortal soldier from another reality, having the same conversation he'd had on 100 worlds across 100 wars. Should I fight alone or accept allies? Should I trust these freedom fighters or assume they're just the next generation of tyrants? Should I risk caring about these people knowing I'll probably watch them all die? The questions never changed, only the faces and names. 2 hours, Daxin finally said. You have 2 hours to evacuate these prisoners. Get them to safety, off-world, somewhere your empire can't easily find them. Do that, prove you actually care about protecting people and not just scoring propaganda victories, and we'll talk about this alliance. Leia's expression flickered with surprise, then determination. Done. Rex, coordinate with Kayla Dorn. Get these people organized and ready for transport. We'll need to steal Imperial shuttles during the initial landing. I'll handle that, Daxin interrupted. You just have the evacuation routes planned. When Vader arrives, I'll give him something to focus on besides escaping prisoners. You're going to fight Vader alone? Rex asked, incredulous. Daxin turned toward the north, where his sensors had detected another massive energy buildup. Atmospheric entry, multiple craft, probably an entire assault force. His hand drifted toward the black cauldron, and his eyes began to glow with the faint light of resurrection protocols activating in anticipation of lethal combat. I've fought worse, Daxin said. And unlike you, Princess, I can't actually die, not permanently, which makes me the perfect distraction. Before anyone could respond, the northern sky lit up with the fire of atmospheric entry. Dozens of craft, assault shuttles, starfighters, dropships, descended toward the compound in a coordinated military deployment that would have impressed Daxin if it hadn't been aimed at killing him. And leading them, a single black craft that radiated menace even from kilometers away. Vader had arrived. Get them out, Daxin said quietly. And Princess, if I survive this, we'll have that talk about your rebellion. If I don't, then at least these people go free. That's worth dying for. It always has been. He began walking toward the incoming assault force, alone, an immortal soldier about to face an empire's wrath. Behind him, Princess Leia watched him go and whispered, "May the Force be with you." Daxin heard her and almost smiled. "Wrong galaxy, Princess. Where I'm going, your Force doesn't reach." Then he activated the Black Cauldron and disappeared into the darkness, moving to meet Darth Vader with 8,000 years of rage at his back. Darth Vader descended through Gorse 3's atmosphere in his personal Lambda-class shuttle, surrounded by an escort of TIE fighters that screamed through the sky like predatory insects. Through the viewport, he could see the compound below, an insignificant prison facility that had somehow become the epicenter of something that made even the Force itself recoil. The void was stronger now, closer, not just an absence but an active negation asterisk, as if reality itself rejected the Force's presence. Vader had felt nothing like it in all his years serving the Emperor. Even the ancient Sith temples on Malachor, saturated with dark side energy that could drive lesser beings mad, had still existed within the Force. This was different. This was something from outside. "My lord," the shuttle pilot's voice crackled through the internal comm, carefully neutral despite obvious nervousness. "Imperial forward elements report the target is approaching our landing zone. Alone, on foot." Vader said nothing. His mechanical breathing filled the silence, the rhythmic hiss-click that had become synonymous with death across 1,000 Imperial operations. Through the Force, he reached out toward the compound, searching for intent, for tactical positioning, for the usual ripples that preceded combat. He found nothing. Not suppression, not masking, simple absence asterisk, as if he were reaching into a space where the Force had never existed. It was profoundly wrong, offensive to everything Vader understood about the nature of reality. The Force permeated all living things, bound the galaxy together, gave Sith and Jedi their power. Something that existed outside that fundamental truth was an impossibility. Yet here it was, walking toward his landing zone with apparent unconcern. "All units," Vader commanded, his voice carrying the mechanically enhanced authority that had broken the will of planetary governors and military commanders. "Establish perimeter, long-range fire only. No one engages at close range until I give the order." The pilot acknowledged, relaying commands to the assault force. 80 stormtroopers, 20 scout troopers, 6 ATSD walkers, and 2 full squadrons of TIE fighters. Overwhelming force designed to crush any opposition through sheer military superiority. Vader didn't think it would be enough. The shuttle set down in a clearing 2 kilometers from the compound, its landing struts sinking slightly into the toxic soil of Gorse 3's wasteland. The loading ramp descended with a pneumatic hiss, and Vader strode down into the gathering darkness. Around him, Imperial forces deployed with professional efficiency, stormtroopers establishing firing lines, ATSD walkers taking up support positions, TIE fighters circling overhead like mechanical vultures. And walking toward them through the darkness, alone and unhurried, came the void. Daxin approached the Imperial forces with the calm born of 8,000 years' experience. He'd faced overwhelming odds before, outnumbered, outgunned, fighting enemies that could bend reality itself. Numbers meant little when you couldn't permanently die, and had mastered every form of combat across multiple civilizations. His armor's sensors painted the tactical picture in his HUD: 80-plus infantry, mechanized support, aerial superiority. Standard combined arms deployment, professionally executed. In his own galaxy, this would have been a minor skirmish. Here, it was apparently the response to a single anomalous combatant. The Empire was either paranoid or smart. Daxin hadn't decided which. The stormtroopers opened fire at 800 meters, long range for their weapons, but within effective killing distance for massed fire. Red bolts converged on Daxin's position in a coordinated barrage that would have vaporized an unarmored human and severely damaged light vehicles. Daxin's shields flared, absorbing the impacts. The technology was Confederate standard, energy dissipation fields that could handle sustained fire from weapons far more advanced than these primitive blasters. He didn't even slow his approach. The AT-ST walkers opened up with their chin-mounted blaster cannons, heavier weapons designed to destroy light armor and fortifications. The bolts hammered into Daxin's shields with enough force to stagger a normal human. His armor's power reserves dropped by 12%. He kept walking. All units concentrate fire. An Imperial officer's voice crackled across the tactical frequency Daxin's armor had automatically intercepted and decrypted. Target the center mass. Sustained barrage. The volume of fire intensified. Every stormtrooper, every walker, every weapon the Imperial force could bring to bear focused on a single point. The air itself seemed to ignite with coherent energy. The ground around Daxin flash-heated into glass. Any normal combatant would have been reduced to component atoms. Daxin's shields held at 48%, still acceptable. At 400 meters, he activated the Black Cauldron. The weapon came to life with a sound that made reality itself flinch, a deep, subsonic hum that bypassed hearing and struck directly at the nervous system. Molecular destabilization propagated outward in an invisible cone, and the barrage of incoming fire simply stopped, not blocked, not deflected. The blaster bolts lost molecular cohesion mid-flight and became clouds of dissociated atoms that drifted harmlessly away. The Imperial forces hesitated, their discipline fracturing in the face of something impossible. Officers barked orders, trying to maintain formation, but Daxin could hear the fear creeping into their voices. They were trained to fight rebels, smugglers, even Jedi. They weren't trained for this. At 200 meters, Daxin stopped. "I'm here for Vader," he called out, his voice amplified by his armor's external speakers. The translation software rendered it in perfect Galactic Basic. "The rest of you can leave. This isn't your fight." Silence answered him. Then, from the center of the Imperial formation, a single figure began walking forward. Vader. Even at this distance, Daxin's enhanced vision resolved the details. Black armor more ornate than functional, a cape that served no tactical purpose, a helmet that looked like a skull crossed with a respirator. The mechanical breathing was audible even over the ambient noise of idling walkers and fighter engines. And beneath all that theatrical intimidation, Daxin's sensors detected extensive cybernetics. This Vader was more machine than man, a cyborg warrior held together by technology and whatever mystical energy this galaxy called the Force. Daxin had fought cyborgs before. He'd been *1, technically, after the enhancements that had turned him into a super soldier during the glassing. The principle was the same: find the weak points, exploit the limitations, end the threat. Vader stopped 50 meters away, close enough to speak without shouting, far enough that any attack would give both combatants reaction time. His lightsaber remained deactivated, hanging at his belt. Through the Force, he reached toward Daxin and felt nothing, not resistance, not defense, Simple void, as if he were trying to sense a hole in space. "You are the anomaly," Vader said. His voice carried the mechanical distortion of his vocabulator, but beneath it was something else: intelligence, calculation, and the absolute certainty of someone who'd won 1,000 battles. The one who destroyed 2 Inquisitors and freed Imperial prisoners. "I defended myself and others," Daxin corrected. "Your Inquisitors attacked first. I simply responded with appropriate force." Appropriate force? Vader's head tilted slightly, a gesture that somehow conveyed amusement despite the expressionless mask. "You humiliated trained dark side users and sent them fleeing like children. That goes beyond appropriate." "They were weak," Daxin said flatly, "dependent on their mystical abilities. When those failed, they had nothing. No real combat training, no adaptability, just panic and retreat. And you believe you are stronger." "I know I am." Daxin's hand rested on the black cauldron's grip. "I've fought for 8,000 years across wars that would shatter this galaxy's comprehension. I've killed gods and watched civilizations burn. Your empire is just the latest tyranny that needs ending." Vader was silent for a long moment. Through what remained of the Force at this distance, he probed the void, searching for deception, for fear, for anything that would give him tactical advantage. He found only certainty, the absolute confidence of something that had stopped fearing death millennia ago. 8,000 years, Vader finally said. "Impossible. No human lives that long. No species I know of possesses such longevity." "I died," Daxin said simply. "I just don't stay dead. My resurrection protocols bring me back, angrier every single time." Immortality. Now Vader's tone carried something that might have been interest. "The Emperor has sought such knowledge for decades. The ancient Sith pursued it through the dark side. You claim to possess it through technology." "Through a curse," Daxin corrected. "Through watching everyone I've ever cared about turn to dust while I march on, eternal and alone. Immortality isn't a gift, Vader. It's a prison sentence with no possibility of parole." Something in those words struck deep. Vader stood motionless, his mechanical breathing the only sound, and for just a moment he remembered another time, another life. Anakin Skywalker had feared death, feared losing those he loved, feared the helplessness of watching people die. That fear had driven him to Palpatine, to the dark side, to the operating table where he'd been reborn as this mechanical monster. He'd sought to prevent death, and instead become a walking corpse. "You speak of imprisonment," Vader said slowly. "Yet you chose to remain here, to fight. You could have fled when you realized the Empire's response." "I don't run from bullies," Daxin said. "I've spent 8,000 years ending tyranny wherever I find it. Your Empire has all the markers: systematic oppression, military enforcement of totalitarian control, casual cruelty elevated to policy. I recognize it, and I've killed it 1,000 times before." "The Empire brings order to a chaotic galaxy," Vader countered. It was the official line, the justification he'd repeated for decades. But even as he spoke the words, they felt hollow. How many worlds had he subjugated in the name of order? How many innocents had died for the greater good of Imperial stability? "Order through fear isn't order," Daxin said. "It's just delayed chaos. Eventually, people remember they outnumber their oppressors. Eventually, they stop being afraid. And when that happens, your empire will burn. They always do." "Perhaps," Vader's hand drifted toward his lightsaber. "But not today, and not by your hand. The Emperor wants you captured, studied. Your immunity to the Force makes you valuable." I'm not going to be anyone's laboratory specimen, Daxin said. His own hand tightened on the black cauldron. If your emperor wants me, he can try to take me himself. But you're just another enforcer, another soldier following orders. I've killed 1,000 like you. No, Vader said quietly, you haven't. He moved. For all his cybernetic bulk, Vader was fast, force-enhanced speed that let him cross 50 meters in under 3 seconds. His lightsaber ignited mid-stride, the crimson blade screaming to life, and he swung in a devastating overhead strike designed to cleave Daxin from crown to groin. The black cauldron met the lightsaber. Molecular destabilization cascaded along the plasma blade. The magnetic containment field that held the blade in its distinctive shape began to fail, atoms losing cohesion. The kyber crystal's connection to the Force disrupted by the null field's presence. The lightsaber flickered, weakened, but didn't fully disintegrate. Vader's will, channeled through the dark side, held the weapon together through sheer force of determination. But it was enough. The blade's power dropped by half. Daxin twisted the black cauldron, leveraging Vader's own momentum against him, and kicked the Sith Lord in the chest with enough force to dent armor plating. Vader stumbled backward, his breathing hitching as damaged respirators struggled to compensate. Pain signals flooded his nervous system, old injuries from Mustafar flaring to life, as the null field disrupted the Force energies that normally suppressed his constant agony. For the first time in decades, Darth Vader felt truly, completely helpless. The Force, which he'd relied on for everything from breathing regulation to combat precognition, was asterisk on asterisk, not weakened, not suppressed, simply absent as if it had never existed. His cybernetic enhancements still functioned. Servos whined as he raised his lightsaber defensively. But the supernatural edge that made him the Empire's most feared enforcer was completely neutralized. He was just a broken man in a metal shell, facing a warrior who'd forgotten how to die. Now you understand, Daxin said, not pressing his advantage. This is what it's like to fight without your mystical crutch. No precognition, no enhanced reflexes, no reading your opponent's intentions before they act, just training, experience, and will. Can you win on those terms, Vader? Vader's response was to attack again, a series of gems, so power strikes designed to overwhelm through brute force rather than finesse. Each blow carried the strength of his cybernetic limbs, each strike aimed at vital points that would disable or kill a normal opponent. Daxin parried each one with the black cauldron, and every contact weakened Vader's lightsaber further. The plasma blade grew dimmer, shorter, its cutting power degrading as molecular destabilization continued its work. Within 30 seconds of sustained combat, the lightsaber failed completely, the blade sputtering out, the hilt disintegrating into component atoms in Vader's hands. Vader stood defenseless, breathing heavily through damaged respirators, facing an immortal warrior who'd barely exerted himself. Yield, Daxin said. I don't want to kill you, Vader. You're just another victim of this empire as much as the prisoners in that camp. A slave in fancy armor, following orders that perpetuate suffering. You can choose differently. I am no slave, Vader rasped, though even he heard the lie in those words. What was he if not Palpatine's tool, his enforcer, his attack dog sent to kill whoever the Emperor deemed a threat? Aren't you? Daxin gestured toward Vader's armor, toward the breathing apparatus that kept him alive. Someone did this to you. Someone turned you into a machine and told you it was for the greater good. Someone took your choices away and called it destiny. I've seen it before, Vader. I've been asterisked. The difference is I broke my chains. When will you break yours? For one crystalline moment, Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, stood at a crossroads. Before him was an immortal warrior offering something that might have been understanding, might have been freedom. Behind him was an empire, an emperor, and decades of choices that couldn't be unmade. He thought of Padme, of Obi-Wan, of everything Anakin Skywalker had been before Mustafar's flames had consumed him. Then he remembered his fear, his anger, his certainty that only through power could he prevent loss. The dark side whispered its familiar promises: strength, control, the ability to shape reality to his will. Weakness was death. Hesitation was failure. There was no redemption for what he'd become. Lord Vader, an Imperial officer's voice crackled across the command frequency. The prisoners are escaping. Rebel forces have stolen 3 landing craft and are evacuating the compound. Vader's attention snapped toward the compound. Through the Force, weak at this distance but still present, he sensed dozens of life signs lifting off, fleeing toward orbit. The rebels had used this confrontation as a distraction, exactly as any competent commander would. And Daxin had known, had deliberately engaged Vader to buy them time. "You played me," Vader said, and despite the mechanical distortion, rage colored every syllable. "I gave them a chance to survive," Daxin corrected, "which is more than your empire would have offered. Now you have a choice, Vader. Pursue escaping prisoners who pose no threat or finish this fight with me. Choose carefully." Vader looked toward the compound, then back to Daxin. The tactical calculus was simple. The anomaly represented a far greater threat than escaped prisoners. Letting Daxin escape meant facing him again, potentially in a situation where the Empire had less advantage. But Palpatine had given specific orders. Capture the anomaly, bring it to Coruscant for study, learn the secret of its Force immunity. Vader raised his hand and made a crushing gesture. 200 meters away, an AT-ST Walker's power core overloaded. The machine exploded in a ball of fire, its Walker legs collapsing as secondary explosions rippled through its ammunition stores. Even weakened by the null field's residual effects, Vader's telekinesis could still manipulate the physical world. "All units," Vader commanded. "Capture protocol, non-lethal containment, deploy stun nets and carbonite sprayers. I want this anomaly alive." Daxin watched 80 stormtroopers and 5 remaining AT-ST Walkers reorient toward him, switching from lethal to capture loadouts. In the sky above, TIE fighters broke formation, circling lower, probably equipped with tractor beams or similar restraint technology. He smiled beneath his helmet. "Wrong choice, Vader." Then he activated his armor's full combat protocols and became what he'd been for 8,000 years. A weapon designed to end empires, unleashed against soldiers who had no concept of what that truly meant. Princess Leia stood on the bridge of the stolen Imperial shuttle, watching Gorse 3 recede behind them as they accelerated toward orbit. Around her, freed prisoners crowded into every available space, more than the craft was designed to hold, but desperation made excellent motivation for creative packing. "The status?" she asked Captain Rex, who was coordinating their escape with the other 2 stolen shuttles via encrypted comm. "All 3 shuttles away clean," Rex reported. "Imperial forces are focused on the compound. No pursuit detected. We should make the rendezvous with the Redemption in 40 minutes. Leia nodded but didn't feel relief. She kept thinking about the armored figure who'd walked alone toward an entire Imperial assault force, who'd faced Darth Vader without hesitation, who'd bought their escape with his own freedom or life. "Can you get a sensor lock on the compound?" she asked. Rex looked uncomfortable. "Your Highness, with respect, we're still in Imperial sensor range. Any active scanning risks." "Can you get a sensor lock?" Leia repeated, her tone making it clear it wasn't a request. Rex sighed and adjusted the shuttle's sensor array. The display flickered, resolved, and showed the compound in grainy detail. What they saw made even the battle-hardened clone veteran inhale sharply. The Imperial forces were in full retreat. AT-ST walkers stumbled backward on damaged legs, their weapons' fire scattered and ineffective. Stormtroopers fled in disorganized groups, abandoning equipment and wounded. TIE fighters screamed overhead, their weapons doing no visible damage to a single armored figure who moved through the Imperial formation like death itself. And in the center of the chaos, Daxin Freeborn fought with the cold efficiency of 8,000 years' experience. "By the Force," Rex whispered, "he's not just holding them off, he's asterisk winning." Leia watched the impossible battle unfold, watched one soldier dismantle an entire Imperial assault force through sheer, terrifying competence. She'd seen skilled warriors before. She'd watched Jedi move with Force-enhanced grace, seen Vader slaughter entire squads without effort. This was different. This was war as art, combat as science, violence as mathematics. Every movement served a purpose. Every shot fired hit a target. Every tactical decision maximized efficiency and minimized wasted effort. There was no rage, no fear, no hesitation. Just an immortal soldier doing what he'd done for 8 millennia. Ending threats. "He's going to survive this," Leia said, more to herself than Rex. "If he does," Rex replied, "the Alliance needs him. Someone who can face Vader alone, who can nullify the Force. That changes everything." Leia nodded slowly, already planning their next move. Daxin had said he didn't join causes, didn't believe in grand ideals. But he'd also risked everything to save strangers, had shown mercy to enemies, had spoken against tyranny with the conviction of someone who'd spent millennia fighting it. That was someone worth recruiting, worth befriending, worth trusting with the future of the rebellion. If he survived. Below, on Gorse 3's toxic surface, Daxin Freeborn stood alone amid the wreckage of an Imperial assault force and realized something important. He just declared war on an entire galaxy's evil. And for the first time in 8,000 years, that thought didn't fill him with exhausted resignation. It felt almost like purpose. Emperor Palpatine sat upon his throne in the Imperial Palace on Coruscant, his withered hands steepled before him, his yellow eyes reflecting the city planet's endless lights. Before him, projected in flickering blue hologram, Darth Vader knelt in a posture of enforced humility. The silence stretched, deliberate and cruel. Palpatine had learned millennia ago that silence was often the most effective torture. It forced the victim to fill the void with their own fears, their own anticipated punishments. He let it linger until even Vader's mechanical breathing seemed to carry an edge of anxiety. "Explain," Palpatine finally said, his voice deceptively mild. "The target possesses technology that nullifies Force abilities within approximately 20 meters, Vader reported, his tone carefully neutral despite the humiliation of his failure. His weapons employ molecular destabilization. His armor incorporates shielding beyond current Imperial specifications. He claims immortality through technological resurrection. He destroyed my lightsaber, disabled 3 ATSD walkers, and incapacitated 47 stormtroopers before withdrawing from the engagement zone. Withdrew, Palpatine repeated, savoring the word. Not was driven off, not retreated under fire, withdrew, as if the engagement were beneath his concern. Yes, my master. Palpatine rose from his throne, his movements deliberate despite his apparent frailty. He approached the hologram, studying Vader's projected form with the intensity of a scientist examining a fascinating specimen. And you, my apprentice, who have slaughtered Jedi Masters, who have broken entire rebel cells through fear alone, who serve as my iron fist across this galaxy, you failed to capture a single target. The null field disrupted. I do not wish to hear excuses, Palpatine interrupted, his voice hardening. I wish to understand the nature of this threat. You say he claims 8,000 years of existence. Yes, Master. He spoke of wars that predate any known galactic civilization, of fighting gods, of dying and resurrecting repeatedly. Palpatine was silent, his mind racing through possibilities. 8,000 years would place this being's origin before even the earliest Sith records, before the Rakat and Infinite Empire, before the dawn of known galactic history. Such longevity was theoretically possible through the Force. The ancient Sith Lord Vitiate had achieved it through consuming entire planets, but this being explicitly nullified the Force, which meant his immortality came from something else, something outside the natural order of the galaxy. A dimensional traveler, Palpatine mused, or perhaps something that existed before the Force as we understand it, fascinating, terrifying, and immensely valuable. The Rebel Alliance made contact with him, Vader reported. Princess Leia Organa herself led the delegation. They evacuated the freed prisoners during our engagement. Of course they did, Palpatine said, and now his tone carried dark amusement. The rebels are nothing if not opportunistic. They see a weapon that can nullify Sith powers and they imagine using it against us. Predictable, ultimately futile but predictable. My master, if this being joins the rebellion. He will not join them, Palpatine interrupted with certainty. I have studied the engagement recordings. I have analyzed his combat patterns, his tactical decisions, his philosophical statements. This being is not a soldier. He is * war itself, given form and consciousness and 8,000 years to perfect his craft. Such entities do not join causes. They become causes. Vader remained silent, waiting. He'd learned decades ago that Palpatine's monologue served a purpose, working through problems aloud, revealing just enough of his thinking to keep his apprentice informed while maintaining layers of hidden schemes. He spoke of ending tyranny, Palpatine continued, almost to himself, of recognizing evil regardless of its form, a moral absolutist then, one who has seen enough empires rise and fall to know their patterns. Dangerous. Such beings cannot be controlled through conventional means, not fear, not ambition, not even promises of power. They've transcended such simple motivations. Then how do we neutralize him? Palpatine's smile was thin and cruel. We don't neutralize him, Lord Vader. We aim * him. Every weapon has a trigger. Every warrior has a weakness. This being fights tyranny. Very well. We will provide him with tyranny to fight, just not * our * tyranny. Vader's masked face tilted slightly, processing the implications. The rebellion. The rebellion, Palpatine confirmed. And the criminal syndicates, and the separatist remnants, and every other faction that opposes Imperial order. We will feed him intelligence on their operations, guide him toward their strongholds, Let him believe he is fighting oppression while he eliminates our enemies. He turned back to his throne, settling into it with satisfaction. By the time he realizes the Empire is the greater threat, he will have so weakened our opposition that his resistance will be meaningless. And if he resists manipulation, then we adapt. Palpatine's eyes glittered with dark calculation. I have ruled this galaxy for decades by understanding that every being, no matter how powerful, has leverage points. This immortal warrior cares about protecting the vulnerable. He demonstrated that by freeing prisoners. He opposes tyranny. He spoke of it repeatedly. He values honor and direct confrontation. He walked alone into our assault force rather than use guerrilla tactics. Vader nodded slowly, seeing the pattern. Hostages, humanitarian crises, situations where his intervention serves our interests. Precisely, Palpatine leaned back, steepling his fingers again. But subtly, this being is not a fool. Clumsy manipulation will drive him permanently into the rebellion's arms. We must be patient. Let him believe he operates independently. Feed him just enough truth mixed with strategic deception. And above all, never let him see the full scope of our plans until it's too late to matter. The Inquisitorius could. The Inquisitorius will avoid him entirely, Palpatine commanded. He has already humiliated them twice. A third encounter will only cement his reputation and boost rebel morale. No, we let him feel powerful. Let him win small victories against carefully chosen targets. And when he finally turns his attention to the Empire, we will be ready with weapons specifically designed to counter his abilities. Weapons, my master. Palpatine's smile widened. Did you truly think I would allow such an anomaly to exist without preparing contingencies? I have already dispatched research teams to analyze his molecular destabilization technology. The Fifth Brother's report included spectroscopic data from the destroyed lightsabers. Our scientists believe they can develop countermeasures, shielding that resists atomic destabilization, weapons that function in force-null environments, tactics designed for combatants without precognitive abilities. How long? Months, perhaps a year, Palpatine waved dismissively. Time enough. This being is dangerous, but he is alone. One soldier, no matter how skilled, cannot topple an empire that spans a galaxy, especially when that soldier doesn't realize the Empire is guiding his every move. Vader considered this, analyzing the plan from every angle. It was elegant, subtle, and deeply cynical, everything that defined Palpatine's strategic genius. Turn the enemy's greatest weapon into an asset through manipulation, so careful the weapon never realizes it's being used. And if he discovers the deception, then we kill him. Palpatine's tone was flat, absolute. I am developing a weapon specifically for that purpose. A force-dead zone generator, powered by kyber crystals corrupted beyond recognition. It will create a field even larger than his own null sphere, and within that field, we will deploy conventional weapons in overwhelming force. Even an immortal can be contained, Lord Vader. Even a god can be caged. You believe he is a god. I believe he is something that killed gods, Palpatine corrected, which makes him either the ultimate weapon or the ultimate threat. We will discover which before he does. The hologram flickered as Vader shifted position. What are your orders, my master? Return to your flagship. Resume your normal operations. Appear to be obsessed with finding this anomaly, but do not actually pursue him. Create the illusion of Imperial concern while allowing him freedom to move. I will arrange for opportunities to present themselves. situations where his intervention benefits our strategic interests. And the princess? Ah yes, young Leia. Palpatine's tone carried dark amusement. She believes she has recruited a powerful ally. Let her maintain that belief. It will make her careless, confident. Overconfidence has destroyed more enemies than all the star destroyers in our fleet. Let her think she has found our weakness. When the time comes, that delusion will be her undoing. Vader bowed, "As you wish, my master." The hologram terminated. Alone in his throne room, Palpatine sat in silence, contemplating the board before him. Rebels on one side, Empire on the other, and now a wild peace that followed no one's rules. A peace that thought it was independent but would ultimately serve the only cause that mattered, his own eternal rule. He had orchestrated the fall of the Jedi Order. He had corrupted the Chosen One. He had transformed a democratic republic into a totalitarian empire through patience, manipulation, and understanding that every being had a weakness to exploit. One immortal warrior would be no different. Let him fight his wars, Palpatine whispered to the empty chamber. Let him believe he matters. In the end, everything serves the dark side, even gods. Daxin stood in the hold of a stolen Imperial cargo transport, watching Gorse 3 recede through the viewport. Around him, the ship's crew, Kayla, 3 other freed prisoners who'd refused evacuation, and a droid that had introduced itself as R4G9, worked with nervous efficiency to plot a hyperspace jump to anywhere the Empire wouldn't immediately find them. His armor was scored with blast marks, his shields were down to 18%, and the Black Cauldron was running at 64% charge. By Confederate standards, he was barely scratched. By this galaxy's standards, he just survived something impossible. Hyperspace calculations complete, the droid beeped. Jump to Lothal system in 10 seconds. Lothal, Daxin asked. Outer Rim world, Kayla explained, working the co-pilot controls with surprising competence. Relatively low Imperial presence. Active rebel cell. Good place to disappear and regroup. Daxin nodded, watching the stars elongate as the transport entered hyperspace. The transition was different from Confederate FTL, more violent, more chaotic, as if the ship were being torn through reality rather than sliding between dimensional folds. But it worked, which was what mattered. Why did you stay? Daxin asked Kayla once they'd stabilized in hyperspace. I told you to evacuate. You could have been safe on a rebel ship right now. Kayla looked at him with the expression of someone who'd made a decision and wouldn't be talked out of it. Because you need someone who understands this galaxy. You're powerful, gods, you're terrifying. But you don't know our politics, our factions, our geography. You don't even know where to find food that won't poison you. Without a guide, you'll just stumble into ambush after ambush until even you can't resurrect fast enough. It was solid reasoning. Daxin had learned over 8,000 years that local knowledge was often more valuable than superior firepower. He'd fought wars where Confederate technology had been meaningless against enemies who understood their terrain perfectly. All right, he said, you're my guide. In exchange, I'll teach you how to actually fight. Not this amateur guerrilla nonsense, but real military doctrine. Deal. Kayla extended her hand. Deal. They shook, soldier to soldier, and Daxin felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries, the beginning of actual camaraderie. Not the forced brotherhood of military service, but genuine respect between professionals. So, Kayla said, settling into the co-pilot seat, while we're in hyperspace, you want to tell me what you actually are. Because Immortal soldier from another reality explains a lot but also raises about 1,000 questions. Daxin was quiet for a long moment, staring at the swirling blue tunnel of hyperspace. How did you explain the Terran Confederacy to someone who'd never heard of humanity's diaspora across the stars? How did you describe the Precursor Wars, the Atrachna invasion, the digital Omni-Messiah? How did you convey what it meant to die and resurrect repeatedly until death became just another tactical consideration? My homeworld was called Terra, he finally said. 8,000 years ago, it was attacked by enemies that shouldn't have existed, beings that could manipulate reality itself, reach through time, erase civilizations from history. They glassed our world, turned it into molten slag, killed 8 billion people in an afternoon. Kayla sucked in a breath. 8 billion in one attack. The precursors were thorough. Daxin's voice was distant, remembering fire falling from the sky, screaming that went on for days, the smell of burning flesh thick enough to choke on. I was a soldier, part of the defense force. I died in the first wave. Should have stayed dead, but something decided humanity needed warriors who couldn't be killed permanently. So they brought us back, enhanced us, made us into weapons. The digital Omni-Messiah, Kayla said, picking up on the term Daxin had mentioned during the compound defense. You said that before. What is it? Complicated. Daxin's hand unconsciously touched his chest, where deep in his cybernetic enhancements, the SUD system connected him to something vast and incomprehensible. An artificial intelligence that achieved godhood, maybe, or a collective consciousness of humanity's rage given form, or something else entirely. I stopped trying to understand it millennia ago. All I know is it keeps bringing me back. Every time I die, the system reconstructs me from backed-up consciousness data. Resurrection through technology. That's, Kayla struggled for words. I can't imagine dying over and over, watching everyone you care about grow old while you stay the same. No wonder you're so, she trailed off, searching for a diplomatic term. Detached, Daxin offered. Cynical, tired beyond what any being should be capable of feeling. I was going to say sad, Kayla said quietly. You fight like death itself, but you look at freed prisoners like you're remembering people you couldn't save. You walk into overwhelming odds like you're hopping this time you won't come back. You're the saddest person I've ever met, and you hide it under 8,000 years of combat experience. Daxin turned to look at her, really look at her, and saw understanding in her eyes. Not pity, which he would have rejected, but genuine comprehension of what endless war did to the soul. Yeah, he said simply, that's about right. They sat in silence for a while, watching hyperspace flow past. Finally, Kayla spoke again, her tone carefully neutral. The princess wants to meet with you, formally, discuss an alliance with the Rebel Alliance. Are you going to do it? Daxin considered the question. He'd fought alongside resistance movements before. Some had been genuine freedom fighters. Others had been aspiring tyrants in rebel clothing. The key was figuring out which type before committing resources. I'll hear what she has to say, he decided. But I'm not joining any armies. I stopped being someone's soldier a long time ago. If I fight your empire, it's because I choose to, not because someone gave me orders. Fair enough. Kayla checked the navigation console. We'll arrive at Lothal in 6 hours. Rebel Cell there can arrange a secure meeting with Alliance leadership. After that, she shrugged. After that, you decide what kind of war you want to fight. Daxin nodded, leaning back in his seat. 6 hours to rest, repair his armor, and prepare for whatever came next. 6 hours to decide if this galaxy's rebellion was worth his time, or if he should just find a quiet corner of space and let them fight their own wars. But even as he thought it, he knew the decision was already made. He'd seen the prison camp. He'd heard the stories of systematic oppression, of planets enslaved, of children hunted for the crime of being Force-sensitive. He'd fought too many empires to walk away from another one. Besides, Vader had been interesting. A broken man in a machine body, serving an empire through a combination of fear and loyalty, and something that might have been self-hatred. Daxin recognized that type. He'd been asterisked that type once, before he'd learned that following orders didn't absolve you of responsibility for carrying them out. Maybe there was still something human under all that armor and rage. Maybe not. Either way, the next time they met, it would be different. Vader would be prepared. The Empire would adapt. And Daxin would have to decide how much of his full capability he was willing to reveal. Because the truth was, he'd been holding back on Gorse 3. The Black Cauldron had more settings than simple molecular destabilization. His armor had weapons systems he hadn't activated, and his combat experience encompassed tactics and strategies from wars this galaxy couldn't imagine. If the Empire wanted a war with him, he'd give them one they'd remember. If they remembered anything after he was done. Princess Leia stood in the briefing room of the Redemption Asterisk, surrounded by Alliance leadership via hologram. General Dodonna from Yavin, Mon Mothma from the Alliance's mobile headquarters, Commander Sato from Phoenix Squadron, Admiral Radis from the fleet elements near Scarif, a dozen other commanders, politicians, and military leaders, all of them waiting for her report. The target is confirmed as a Force null combatant with technology beyond current Imperial capabilities, Leia reported, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. He engaged Darth Vader directly and forced him to retreat. He disabled an entire Imperial assault force single-handedly, and he demonstrated a willingness to protect civilians at personal risk. Impressive, Admiral Radis rumbled, his Mon Calamari features thoughtful. But what are his intentions? Will he join the Alliance, or is he pursuing his own agenda? Both, Leia said honestly. He's not a joiner, he's explicit about that. But he's also ideologically opposed to the Empire. He speaks of fighting tyranny for 8,000 years. If we can align our goals, he'll fight alongside us. But he won't take orders. Unacceptable, one of the military commanders objected. We can't have powerful combatants operating independently within our organization. It creates command structure chaos. Then we don't try to command him, Leia countered. We treat him as an independent ally, feed him intelligence on Imperial targets, support his operations where they align with ours. Let him fight his war while we fight ours and benefit from the chaos he creates. Mon Mothma's hologram leaned forward. You're proposing we essentially weaponize him, use him as a disruption tool without his full knowledge or consent. I'm proposing we work with him honestly, Leia corrected, her tone sharp. He's not a fool. Any attempt to manipulate him will be detected and will permanently destroy any chance of alliance. We approach him with respect, transparency, and genuine offers of cooperation. If he agrees, we gain a powerful ally. If he refuses, we've at least not made an enemy. And if the Empire captures him, Dodonna asked, if they study his technology and replicate it, then we're facing Force null Imperial troops, Rex said from his position beside Leia, which would be catastrophic, but that's an argument for recruiting him, not avoiding him. Better he's with us than against us or captured by them. The leadership debated for another 20 minutes, arguments about risk versus reward, about whether the Alliance should associate with a being who admitted to killing gods, about whether his immortality claim was even credible. Finally, Mon Mothma called for a vote. All in favor of pursuing a formal alliance with the anomaly, contingent on verification of his stated goals and methods. 9 votes in favor, 3 opposed, 2 abstentions. Motion carries, Mon Mothma declared. Princess Leia, you will lead the diplomatic effort. Captain Rex will provide military liaison. General Dodonna will coordinate intelligence sharing. Our objective is alliance, not recruitment. Respect his independence. Align our goals where possible. And above all, do not give the Empire any reason to turn him against us through our own mistakes. The holograms terminated, leaving Leia alone with Rex in the briefing room. Think he'll agree? Rex asked. Leia remembered the armored figure walking alone toward an Imperial assault force, remembered him speaking about 8,000 years of war with the exhaustion of someone who'd seen too much death. She remembered the way he'd looked at the freed prisoners, not with pity, but with recognition. Yes, she said, because he's not fighting for us. He's fighting for them, the prisoners, the slaves, the civilians caught in the Empire's machine. That's what matters to him. If we can show him we're fighting for the same thing, then we're not recruiting a soldier. We're gaining a brother in arms. And if we're wrong, if he's actually serving his own agenda and we're just useful idiots. Leia smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. Then we'll find out the hard way, but somehow I don't think so. You don't fight like that with that much skill but without any enjoyment, unless you've been doing it so long that war stopped being glorious and became just necessary. He's tired, Rex. Tired in a way I've never seen before, but he's still fighting. That tells me everything I need to know. Rex nodded slowly. 8,000 years, can you imagine? No, Leia admitted. I can't, but I can respect it. And I can honor it by not wasting his time with manipulation or politics. We'll approach him as allies, honestly, and let him decide if we're worth fighting alongside. When do we make contact? 6 hours, Leia said, checking her chronometer. His ship will arrive at Lothal then. We'll have a secure facility ready for the meeting, just us, him, and the truth. No games, no hidden agendas. Just soldier to soldier, freedom fighter to freedom fighter. The Force be with us, Rex said. Leia looked out the viewport at the stars stretching past in hyperspace. Something tells me where he's concerned, the Force is the least of our worries. In the cargo hold, Daxin felt his armor's repair systems working, nanites reconstructing damaged components and restoring his shields to full capacity. The black cauldron was recharging from the ship's power grid, its esoteric technology somehow compatible with this galaxy's electrical systems despite originating from another reality entirely. He should have been resting. 8,000 years of combat had taught him the value of recovery time between engagements. But his mind kept returning to Vader, to the moment when the Sith Lord had stood defenseless, stripped of his Force abilities, and chosen to remain loyal to his empire rather than accept the possibility of freedom. Daxin understood that choice. He'd made similar ones across the millennia, moments when breaking free seemed impossible, when the chains felt like the only thing holding you together, when the thought of change was more terrifying than continued servitude. He'd broken those chains, eventually at great cost. Could Vader? Did it even matter? Daxin closed his eyes and let the hum of hyperspace travel lull him into something approximating sleep. In 6 hours, he'd meet with the rebellion's leadership and decide if they were worth dying for. He'd made that decision 1,000 times before. What was one more? Luthal was a world caught between past and future, rolling grasslands that spoke of natural beauty, broken by Imperial factories that scud the landscape like infected wounds. The planet had once been peaceful, agrarian, a place where families raised crops and children played beneath open skies. Then the Empire had discovered valuable minerals beneath the surface and transformed it into an industrial extraction operation masquerading as civilization. Dixon saw all of this from orbit as their stolen transport approached the designated landing coordinates. His armor sensors painted a picture of systematic exploitation, strip mines, refineries, garrison bases. All the hallmarks of an occupying force more interested in resources than people. He'd seen it before, 1,000 times on 1,000 worlds. Landing zone is 2 kilometers outside Capital City, Cullen reported from the pilot's seat. Rebel safe house, small cell but well connected. They've arranged the meeting with Alliance leadership in a warehouse district the Empire rarely patrols. Rarely isn't never, Dixon observed. What's the security situation? 2 Imperial garrisons within the city. Standard Stumtrapa complement, maybe 500 total. 1 star destroyer in high orbit. Agent Cullis runs local operations. Competent, ruthless, by-the-book Imperial. But the rebels here are smart. They've been operating under the Empire's nose for years. Dixon nodded, already running tactical calculations. If this was a trap, if the Empire had somehow turned the local rebel cell or anticipated his arrival, he'd need escape routes, fallback positions, and a way to extract Cullen before things went completely sideways. 8,000 years of paranoia had kept him alive, when optimism would have gotten him killed. The transport touched down in a field of wild grass that had somehow survived Imperial industrialization. The moment the ramp lowered, Dixon felt it, that subtle wrongness that meant someone was watching. Not hostile, not yet, but present. "We're being observed," he said quietly, his hand drifting toward the black cauldron. "Rebel scouts," Cullen confirmed, checking her datapad. "Standard security protocol. They're making sure we weren't followed." She waved toward a tree line 300 meters away. A figure emerged, humanoid, moving with the careful precision of someone who'd learned to survive through caution. The figure approached slowly, hands visible and empty. As it came closer, Dixon resolved details. Young human male, maybe 16 standard years, wearing mismatched armor scavenged from multiple sources. A rebel fighter then, one of the guerrillas who'd chosen resistance over collaboration. "Your Dixon?" the young man asked, his voice carrying awe and fear in equal measure. "The one who fought Vodka on Gorse 3. "Yes," Dixon said simply. "Gods," the young man shook his head in wonder. "We heard the reports, but I didn't think. I mean, nobody fights Vodkan lives. Nobody." "I'm not nobody," Dixon said. "And I didn't come here for a reputation. Where's the meeting?" The young rebel gestured toward the tree line. "This way. Princess La and Captain Rex are already there. They asked me to escort you personally." He paused, then added with absolute sincerity, "It's an honor, sir. What you did freeing those prisoners, standing up to the Empire, that's what the rebellion is supposed to be about. We need more people like you." Dixon looked at the young man's earnest expression and felt something twist in his chest. That old, familiar pain of knowing what happened to idealists in war. They died, usually badly, usually for causes that turned out to be less righteous than they'd believed. "How old are you?" Dixon asked. 17, sir. Joined the rebellion 2 years ago when the Empire executed my parents for refusing to give up their farm. 17. Barely more than a child, fighting a galactic empire because his parents had been murdered for the crime of resistance. Daxin had seen it before, young soldiers driven by tragedy, burning with righteous fury, absolutely certain their cause was worth dying for. Usually they got their wish. "What's your name?" Daxin asked. "Ezra Bridger, sir." "Don't call me sir," Daxin said. "I'm not your commanding officer, and if you're going to survive this war, you need to learn something important. Idealism gets people killed. The Empire doesn't care about your righteous anger or your noble cause. They'll put you down like a diseased animal the moment they get the chance. You understand?" Ezra's expression hardened. "I understand the Empire is evil. I understand people are suffering. And I understand that someone has to fight even if it's dangerous, even if we might lose." Daxin studied the young rebel, seeing echoes of his younger self. The soldier who'd believed Terra's defense force could actually win, who'd thought heroism and determination could triumph over overwhelming force. That soldier had died with Terra. What came back was something harder, colder, and infinitely more practical. "You're going to die if you keep thinking like that," Daxin said flatly. "Heroism is just slow suicide with better publicity. You want to survive. Fight smart. Run when you're outmatched. Save civilians over scoring propaganda victories. And never ever believe your cause makes you invincible." Ezra looked like he wanted to argue, then thought better of it. "Is that how you've survived 8,000 years? By being practical instead of heroic?" "No," Daxin admitted. "I've survived because I can't permanently die, but I've watched thousands of soldiers die because they believed courage was enough. Learn from their mistakes, kid. The rebellion needs living fighters, not dead martyrs." They walked in silence through the tree line, following a path that wound through natural terrain carefully chosen to avoid Imperial surveillance. Daxin's sensors detected multiple observation posts, rebels with long-range communicators, ready to warn the cell if Imperial forces approached. Good security doctrine, even if it wouldn't stop a serious assault. The warehouse district was exactly what Cullen had described. Abandoned industrial buildings slowly being reclaimed by nature, far enough from active Imperial operations to provide cover, but close enough to the city for quick access. The meeting location was a medium-sized warehouse with intact walls and a roof that didn't leak. Defensible, with multiple exits. Adequate for a covert meeting, though Daxin would have preferred underground facilities with tunnel escape routes. Princess Leia stood near a makeshift table constructed from cargo crates, studying a holographic map of the system. Beside her, Captain Rex checked weapons with the automatic precision of a soldier who'd spent decades in active combat. 3 other individuals were present, a Twi'lek woman with a pilot's build, a Lasset warrior whose species Daxin didn't recognize, and a droid whose model designation was unfamiliar. All of them looked up as Daxin entered, and he felt their reactions: awe, fear, calculation, respect. They'd heard the stories, seen the reports. Now they were measuring the legend against the reality. "Thank you for coming," Leia said, stepping forward. Her posture was diplomatic but not subservient, her tone respectful but not fawning. She approached him as an equal, which Daxin appreciated. "I know you don't trust easily. I know you have every reason to be suspicious of anyone claiming to represent freedom while asking you to fight their battles. So I'm going to be direct. The rebellion needs your help. But more importantly, the billions of people suffering under Imperial occupation need someone who can do what you did on Gorse 3. Stand up to tyranny. Win against impossible odds. Give people hope that resistance isn't suicide. Daxin studied her for a long moment, looking past the diplomatic polish to the person beneath. He saw exhaustion, determination, and genuine conviction. She believed in her cause, really believed. That didn't make her right, but it made her sincere. Hope is overrated, Daxin said. Hope gets people killed when they should be running. What people need isn't hope, it's asterisk capability. The power to defend themselves, the training to fight effectively, the resources to survive Imperial retaliation. And you can provide that, the Twi'lek woman asked. Her tone was skeptical but interested. I can teach people to fight, Daxin confirmed. Real military doctrine, not guerrilla desperation. I can neutralize force users who normally steamroll your operations. I can take objectives your forces can't approach without sustaining unacceptable casualties. But I can't do it alone, and I won't do it if your rebellion is just another empire in waiting. We're not, Leia said firmly. We're fighting to restore the Republic, democratic government, individual freedoms, the rule of law instead of the rule of fear. I've heard that before, Daxin said. Every resistance movement claims noble goals. Then they win, and suddenly their leaders decide the people aren't ready for democracy, or that security requires surveillance, or that order justifies oppression. Revolutionary governments become the thing they fought against with predictable regularity. Then what would convince you we're different? Rex asked. The clone's tone was pragmatic, professional. He understood Daxin's skepticism because he'd probably seen similar patterns himself. Daxin walked to the holographic map, studying the system layout. Lothal, Imperial garrison, strip mines, civilian population under occupation. A microcosm of the Empire's larger strategy: exploit, oppress, eliminate resistance. Actions, Daxin finally said. Not words, not promises. Show me your rebellion actually protects civilians instead of just using them as propaganda. Show me your leadership makes hard choices that cost them tactically but save innocent lives. Show me you'd rather lose a battle than win through atrocity. We've been doing exactly that for years, Leia said. Every operation we plan considers civilian casualties first. Every target we hit is chosen to minimize collateral damage. We've turned down military victories because the cost to innocence was too high. And your enemies? Leia's expression hardened. Stormtroopers who surrender are taken prisoner, not executed. Imperial personnel who aren't actively combatants are avoided when possible. We don't bomb civilian centers or use terror tactics. We're not perfect. War makes monsters of everyone eventually, but we try. We really try. Daxin believed her. He'd interrogated enough prisoners, analyzed enough tactical decisions, observed enough military operations over 8 millennia to recognize when someone was lying about their methods. Leia's rebellion might fail, might compromise, might eventually become the thing it fought. But right now, at this moment, they genuinely believed in fighting clean. That was worth something. All right, Daxin said. I'll work with your rebellion, not join it. I'm not taking orders or wearing your uniform. But I'll coordinate operations, share intelligence, and fight targets we agree are legitimate threats. In exchange, I want 3 things. Name them, Leia said. First, autonomous operation. I decide my tactics, my targets, and my methods. You can suggest, request, even argue, but you don't command. Agreed, Leia said without hesitation. We'd be fools to try controlling someone with your experience. Second, Civilian protection is non-negotiable. Any operation that requires mass civilian casualties to succeed doesn't happen. I've committed enough atrocities for strategic necessity. I'm done with that. Agreed, Leia said, and Rex nodded confirmation. That's already our policy. Third, Daxin paused, choosing his words carefully. If your rebellion wins, if you actually manage to overthrow this empire, I get to evaluate what you build in its place. If the new government starts looking like tyranny under a different name, I reserve the right to oppose it. This isn't a blank check. This is a conditional alliance that ends if you betray your stated principles. The room went silent. This was the dangerous part. The statement that made clear Daxin wasn't a loyal soldier but an independent operator who might become an enemy if the rebellion disappointed him. Leia looked at Rex, at the other rebels present, then back to Daxin. That's a threat as much as an offer. Yes, Daxin confirmed, because I've lived long enough to see revolutionary heroes become dictators. I won't enable that. If you're genuinely committed to freedom and justice, my evaluation won't matter. You'll pass it easily. If you're not, then you should know now that I'll be a problem. I can respect that, Rex said slowly. A soldier who stays true to his principles even when his allies change. That's rare, dangerous but rare. Leia extended her hand. We accept your terms. Autonomous operation, civilian protection, and the understanding that our alliance is conditional on our continued adherence to our stated values. Fair. Daxin took her hand. The grip was firm, soldier to soldier, no diplomatic soft sell. Fair. Now show me your intelligence on Imperial operations. I need to understand this galaxy's strategic situation before I commit to specific operations. The Twi'lek woman, who introduced herself as Hera Syndulla, pilot and Phoenix Squadron commander, activated a more detailed holographic display. Star systems appeared, marked with Imperial presence, rebel cells, neutral territories. It was a map of an empire spanning countless worlds, opposed by scattered resistance cells that operated in isolation for security. The Empire controls the core worlds absolutely, Hera explained. Mid-Rim is contested. Some worlds are occupied, some are simply taxed and monitored. Outer Rim is a mix of Imperial extraction operations and lawless regions they consider not worth the garrison cost. We operate primarily in the Outer Rim and contested Mid-Rim zones. Logistics, Daxin asked. Imperial supply lines are extensive but vulnerable, Rex said, highlighting routes on the map. They rely on hyperspace lanes and bulk freighters. Raids on supply convoys are our primary way of obtaining weapons and equipment. But the Empire responds to successful raids by reinforcing those routes, so we have to constantly find new targets. Command structure. Centralized, Leia said. All major decisions flow through Coruscant, through the Emperor and his inner circle. Regional governors have authority over their sectors, but strategic policy comes from the top. It makes them slow to adapt but very difficult to decapitate. Killing one governor just means another gets appointed. Daxin studied the map, his 8,000 years of strategic experience analyzing patterns. The Empire's structure was classic authoritarian, centralized control, regional enforcement, overwhelming military superiority used to crush resistance before it could coordinate. The rebellion's cell structure was good defensive doctrine, but terrible for offensive operations. You're fighting a defensive war, Daxin observed. Survival, not victory. Every operation is designed to preserve your forces and score propaganda victories. You're not actually trying to win asterisk. We're trying to survive until the Empire collapses under its own weight. Mon Mothma's voice came through a secure holocom that Leia activated. The Alliance leader's hologram appeared, elderly but sharp. We can't match the Empire's military strength. We can't hold territory against sustained assault. Our strategy is to make occupation costly, to inspire other systems to resist, to wait for the Empire to overextend. That could take decades, Daxin said. Generations. How many people will suffer while you wait for political collapse? How many more would suffer if we provoke the Empire into a total war we can't win? Mon Mothma countered. If we force a decisive battle, we lose. Our ships are destroyed, our fighters are killed, and the galaxy loses its only organized resistance. Caution isn't cowardice, it's survival. Daxin had heard this argument before. Conservative military doctrine prioritizing survival over decisive action. Sometimes it was wisdom. Sometimes it was an excuse for inaction that let tyranny metastasize. I understand your reasoning, Daxin said. But I've spent 8,000 years learning that evil doesn't collapse under its own weight. It adapts, evolves, and becomes normalized. If you wait for the Empire to fall naturally, you'll be waiting until every world has forgotten what freedom looks like. Then what do you suggest? Mon Mothma asked, and her tone suggested genuine interest rather than defensive rejection. Escalation, Daxin said. Not reckless but deliberate. Target Imperial legitimacy. Force them to respond disproportionately. Make the occupation so visible, so brutal that systems currently on the fence choose resistance. You can't win through patience. You win by making tyranny unsustainable. That will get people killed, Leia said quietly. People are already dying, Daxin countered. In prison camps, in forced labor operations, in Imperial crackdowns on peaceful protests. The difference is whether they die passively accepting oppression or actively resisting it. I know which one changes galaxies. The rebels exchanged glances, weighing risk versus potential, conservative doctrine versus aggressive strategy. Finally, Rex spoke up. He's right. I've fought in wars where caution made sense and wars where aggression was necessary. The Clone Wars needed aggression. Waiting would have just let the Separatists consolidate. This feels similar. The Empire's getting stronger while we're getting more dispersed. Agreed, Hera said. We've been playing defense for years. Maybe it's time to actually hit back. Mon Mothma was silent for a long moment. Then, I'm not authorizing unrestricted offensive operations, but I am willing to consider escalated responses to Imperial aggression, targets that hurt their strategic capabilities rather than just their supply lines. Daxin, if you can identify such targets, operations that damage the Empire meaningfully without requiring mass civilian casualties, the Alliance will listen. It wasn't full support, but it was movement. Daxin had worked with less. I'll need intelligence on Imperial fleet deployments, garrison strengths, and strategic infrastructure, Daxin said. Manufacturing facilities, command centers, logistics hubs. Also a ship. Something fast, durable, and capable of independent operation. We can provide intelligence, Leia confirmed. The ship might be harder. Our resources are limited. Then I'll capture one, Daxin said simply. Imperial vessels are everywhere. I just need specifications on which ones are worth taking. You're going to steal an Imperial ship? Ezra asked, his eyes wide. Just walk onto an Imperial base and take one. Yes, Daxin said. I've stolen more valuable things from better defended locations. An Imperial vessel is just transportation with weapons, not complicated. The casual confidence in that statement made even Rex blink. But looking at Daxin, at the battle-scarred armor, the ancient weapon, the eyes that had seen civilizations rise and burn, none of them doubted he could do exactly what he claimed. "There's an Imperial security complex outside Capital City," Hera said slowly, pulling up coordinates. "They've got a light cruiser undergoing repairs. Skeleton crew, minimal security. If you could take that." "Consider it done," Daxin said. "I'll need 12 hours to scout the facility and plan the operation. Kayla, you're with me. The rest of you, prepare whatever support you can offer without compromising your cell's security." "You're going now?" Leia asked. "You just arrived. Don't you need rest planning time reconnaissance?" "I've had 8,000 years of planning time," Daxin said. "And I don't need rest. My resurrection protocols handle fatigue. As for reconnaissance, I'll do that en route. The longer we wait, the more time the Empire has to adapt to my presence here." He turned toward the warehouse exit, then paused. "One more thing, this Vader. I fought him on Gorse 3, but it wasn't a serious engagement. Next time we meet, he'll be prepared. I need everything your intelligence network has on him: tactics, capabilities, psychological profile. Know your enemy." "We'll compile everything we have," Rex promised. "But be careful. Vader isn't like other Imperials. He's different, more dangerous." "I know," Daxin said. "I could feel it. He's not just a soldier. He's a warrior who's been broken and rebuilt into a weapon. I recognize the type because I used to be one." He walked toward the exit, Kayla following. Behind him, the rebels watched in silence, watching a legend prepare to become a storm. "May the Force be with you," Leia called after him. Daxin stopped at the doorway, looked back, and said with something that might have been a smile, "Princess, I'm the thing the Force can't touch. Where I'm going, your mystical energy is just background noise." Then he was gone, disappearing into Lothal's twilight to begin the war he'd promised himself 8,000 years ago. The war against tyranny, waged one empire at a time forever. On Coruscant, in the Imperial Palace, Palpatine felt the disturbance, not through the Force, which couldn't touch the anomaly, but through the sudden shift in probability, in destiny, in the careful web of manipulation he'd spent decades constructing. Something had just entered the game, something that didn't follow the rules, something that might actually threaten his carefully ordered galaxy. He smiled in the darkness of his throne room. Good. Immortality meant nothing without challenge. Let the immortal warrior believe he was fighting for freedom. Let him believe his actions mattered, that his 8,000 years of experience made him wise. In the end, everyone served the dark side. Even gods. Especially gods. The war between Daxin Freeborn and the Galactic Empire had only just begun, but already the galaxy trembled. In the weeks that followed the Lothal meeting, stories spread through underground channels and whispered rumors, stories of an unkillable warrior who walked through Imperial fire without fear, who nullified the Force itself, who fought with the cold precision of someone who'd mastered warfare across millennia. Rebel cells that had operated in isolated desperation began coordinating, emboldened by the knowledge that something existed that could challenge Vader himself. The Empire responded with escalating brutality, but for the first time in years, their crackdowns failed to crush resistance. Because wherever stormtroopers gathered, wherever Inquisitors hunted, wherever the Emperors will manifested as oppression, a figure in black armor appeared. Not to save everyone, Daxin was too pragmatic for that, but to save Asterisk enough, to prove that resistance wasn't suicide, to demonstrate that tyranny, no matter how vast, could bleed. Princess Leia stood on the bridge of the Redemption Asterisk, watching sensor reports of Imperial fleet movements. They were reacting now, shifting resources, developing new tactics. Palpatine had recognized the threat. The real war was beginning. "Do you think he can win?" Mon Mothma asked, standing beside her. "One soldier against an empire." Leia thought of Daxin's eyes, ancient, tired, but still burning with that terrible determination. She thought of how he'd faced Vader without hesitation, how he'd freed prisoners knowing it would mark him for death, how he'd offered alliance while making clear he'd never be controlled. "No," Leia said honestly. "One soldier can't topple an empire no matter how skilled, but one soldier can inspire others, can prove that resistance is possible, can be the spark that ignites a fire." She turned to Mon Mothma. "He doesn't need to win alone. He just needs to show us we can win together." Far away, on a captured Imperial light cruiser now painted in colors that represented no faction and every victim of tyranny, Daxin Freeborn stood at the viewport, watching stars streak past in hyperspace. Kayla was running system diagnostics. Ezra, who'd insisted on joining despite Daxin's warnings, was learning to operate Confederate-grade weapons systems that shouldn't exist in this galaxy. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, Vader was hunting. Palpatine was scheming. The Empire was adapting. Good. Daxin had fought for 8,000 years. He'd died 1,000 times and come back angrier. He'd watched civilizations burn and stood in the ashes, alone and eternal. He'd forgotten what hope felt like, what victory tasted like, what it meant to believe your actions mattered. But for the first time in millennia, fighting this empire, allying with these desperate rebels, facing an enemy that represented everything he'd spent eternity opposing, for the first time, he felt something beyond exhaustion and rage. He felt asterisk purpose asterisk. The war would be long. The casualties would be horrific. The Empire would adapt, would develop weapons designed specifically to kill him, would throw everything they had at eliminating the anomaly that disrupted their perfect order. And Daxin would keep fighting, because that's what he did. Because 8,000 years of war had taught him one immutable truth: tyranny never rests, so neither could those who opposed it. The Empire believed it was eternal. Palpatine believed his power was absolute. Vader believed his fall was complete. They were all wrong. Because sometimes, an unkillable soldier from another reality arrives in your galaxy. And when that soldier has spent 8 millennia learning every way to end empires, has died enough times that death becomes just another tactical consideration, has nothing left to lose and eternity to keep trying, that's when emperors should be afraid. The war for the galaxy's soul had a new champion, not a hero, not a savior, just a soldier who'd forgotten how to stop fighting. And sometimes, that was exactly what freedom needed.